Tonight on an all-new 2020. The saga of Mike and Dahlia DiPolito was so outrageous, so unbelievable.
Their relationship was like a powder keg. Those two had such sexual attraction.
The reality show Cops is there waiting to capture every second.
This is Sergeant Frank Ramsey, Boynton Beach Police Department. Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed. He's been killed.
Can you imagine home from a simple morning at the gym and you find out that your husband's been murdered?
Listen, is there anybody that you know that you think would want to kill your husband?
Did you ever love Mike DiPolito?
Yes. I married him because I loved him.
Did you want your husband dead?
No, absolutely not. I'm in intensive therapy now, just trying to cope with everything that's happened. It's hard.
How do you explain then what we saw and what we heard on those videotapes?
And that's when Dahlia DiPolito says the phrase that goes around the world.
I'm positive, like 5,000% Charlotte.
With evidence like that, what seems like evidence, how did she end up going to trial not once, not twice,
Dahlia DiPolito walking out a free woman
but 3 times? It is reality TV on steroids. It's a cloudy morning in sleepy Boynton Beach, Florida. It's just before 6 a.m. It's already a humid 80 degrees, and most people are still asleep, but not 26-year-old newlywed Dahlia DiPolito.
On August 5th, 2009, Dahlia and Mike DiPolito had just passed their 6-month wedding anniversary. He's in bed in the morning, and Dahlia gets up and goes to the gym at 6 a.m.
The LA Fitness in Boynton Beach.
He's groggy, it's early morning, he's still in bed.
She tells Mike on the way out, I'm going to the gym, maybe I'll bring you Starbucks on the way home.
In the middle of her workout, Dahlia receives a phone call from the Boynton Beach police.
Sorry, I just missed your call. Please leave this message, and I will return your call as soon as I can.
This is Sergeant Frank Ramsey, Boynton Beach Police Department Detective Division. I need you to call me as soon as you can, ma'am.
A few seconds after missing the call, she calls the number, and it's the Boynton Beach Police asking her to come home.
Okay, can you come right back to your residence, please?
Yeah, I'm leaving right now. Is it ready?
Ma'am, I'll tell you everything you need to know when you get here.
There were cameras everywhere, including from the hit TV show Cops.
She goes rushing up, looking very confused. You see her in her black leggings, her tight spaghetti strap tank top.
Listen, we had a report of a disturbance at your house, and there were shots fired.
Once she arrived, that's when she was told that her husband was killed.
Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed. He's been killed.
And that's when she falls into his arms, wailing. She is screaming. She's saying, no, 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 no.
Try to calm down. Listen, right now, we need to...
From the perspective of neighbors, they see this nice young couple, and next thing they know, something horrible has happened there. And they're all wondering, who would want to kill Mike DiPolito? Is it random? Is it somebody that could have come into my house?
My name is Jillian Jalali, and I have a podcast called Court Junkie. This case has it all as far as true crime is concerned.
Mike and Dahlia seemed to be a perfect match. It was truly a fairy tale.
Dahlia's father was Egyptian and her mother was Peruvian.
She was born Dahlia Muhammad.
Dahlia comes from a religious family, very close-knit family.
And when she was 13 years old, her family moved to Boynton Beach, Florida, where she essentially grew up.
Boynton Beach is located in Palm Beach County. Well, that's a pretty glitzy county in Florida.
When people think of Palm Beach County, they often think of Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump lives. He has that resort there. Boynton Beach, 15 miles away, is a typical American suburb.
It's sort of a middle class, more of a blue-collar community.
Dahlia lived in a gated community. She lived there with her mother. Some describe her as beautiful. She's certainly attractive, especially when she's got her hair and makeup done.
I first met Dahlia DiPolito back in 2015. Has your story been told yet, truthfully?
No, it hasn't.
How would you describe your personality?
Really bubbly, very friendly, really social.
What types of values were you raised with? What was important in your family?
We were constantly doing family activities, family vacations, and a lot of family dinners, these big Sunday dinners.
What were your hopes for her?
To grow up, be married, be happy, and have kids.
Dahlia grows up and she becomes supposedly a real estate agent.
But the problem is that actually takes a lot of really hard work, and she's much more into the quick buck.
I think she was a woman who early on decided there were certain things in life she wanted, and she was going to use her sexuality to get them.
Money. She wants money.
Some people might call Dahlia a gold digger, and if she could see maybe a fast buck in someone, she was gonna go for it.
Enter Mike DiPolito. He says that when he met Dahlia, she was working as a paid escort.
He meets her on a website called eros.com. He was ordering an escort to keep him company over the weekend. He ordered her like a pizza.
Mike DiPolito is an interesting guy. Just like Dahlia, he wants a lavish lifestyle. He yearns for the finer things in life.
Michael DiPolito was a muscular guy. He worked out, and he liked the high life too.
What was your initial impression of Mike DiPolito?
Charming.
What drew you to him?
His personality. He was really, really engaging, and it felt a really strong connection.
So, Mike DiPolito is a very likable guy. He's not afraid to be vulnerable.
And he just seemed sort of like a guy you see at the gym, maybe not too bright, but working hard and trying to have a fun life.
Mike describes his first meeting with Dahlia, that she was sweet, almost naive. Give me some insight into what it was like when you first met.
We got into outdoor activities and stuff, and we got bikes, and we started biking together.
What do you think Michael saw in you?
My personality, who I was, my sense of humor. We talked about all kinds of things. We watched news together. We were big movie people. We both loved Starbucks, coffee drinkers.
Mike had a very difficult upbringing, and I think he really yearned to feel loved and to feel safe and taken care of. He had this void that needed to be filled, and she made him feel like he had never felt before. But the problem that Mike had was that he was married at the time.
They start an affair, a hot and heavy and steamy affair.
He said this was unbelievable.
Did you have any scruples about getting involved with the man who was still married?
No, I was told that he was going through the divorce proceedings, and he had actually sent me papers showing that he was going through the divorce process.
Not only did Mike DiPolito have a wife, he also had a checkered past.
Well, long before he met Dahlia, he'd gone to prison for running a boiler room stock operation.
He was conning old people over the phone.
They would call people up, and they would sell them these penny stocks, convince them that these were going to become stocks that were going to be worth a lot of money, but it actually were just scams.
Basically like the movie The Boiler Room.
Listen, I'm presenting you with an investment opportunity that I think you're going to find very interesting.
Where he's cold calling people and trying to get them to invest in foreign currency.
He was ripping people off.
Along the way, he was definitely making enemies. Mike pled guilty to organized scheme to defraud, unlicensed telemarketing, and theft. And he served a total of 2 years in Florida State Prison, followed by 28 years probation.
They're in love. They are determined to leave their past behind. So this ex-con and his former escort are in this whirlwind romance, and 6 months later, they're married.
The way that it happened, it was just so impulsive, and it felt right.
You went down to the
courthouse the same day, applied for the license. It took a couple of days to, for it to legally be official and everything.
This was a shock to Dahlia's mother, Rhonda Muhammad.
And she showed me her ring. I was like, wow, you got engaged? And she says, no, we got married.
And you thought what?
I wasn't happy at all, but it was done.
If you look at the pictures of them, she has this beautiful smile. He's grinning. They're embracing each other. It looks like true love.
From an outsider looking in, they're the happiest couple.
And that brings us back to that hot August morning in 2009. Mike DiPolito is dead. He has apparently been murdered in his house. And the big question is, why? Who would want to do this?
Police can't help but wonder if this grieving widow is actually keeping a deadly secret.
Are you sure that you don't know anybody who want to kill your husband?
This is Sergeant Frank Ramsey. Ma'am, I need to talk to you. It's very urgent when you come home. It involves your husband. There's been an incident.
Can you imagine? You've got your whole life ahead of you. and you're in love and you're planning everything, and then you come home from a simple morning at the gym and you find out that your husband's been murdered?
I don't wish this on anybody. It's just beyond, words. It's so hard to be able to just fully express.
Your husband, Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am. He's been killed. He's been killed.
The condo is surrounded by police cars. The street was mobbed with detectives, crime scene technicians.
I can't let you in, man. You have to do our job. We'll have to find his killer.
She says, I want to see my husband. And the police say, no, you can't.
If you want to help your husband, you need to go to the station with these guys and tell us everything you know about him. You know, police connected to him.
They put her into the police car, and now she's being whisked away to the police station. So they take her to the interrogation room. She's sitting in there.
I'll explain to you what we're doing. Okay?
They turn the camera on once Dahlia steps into the room to watch her demeanor and to see how she was behaving.
I don't want to be videotaped.
Well, you're being videotaped. That's all part of it.
And still expressing grief and sorrow and disbelief.
No. You don't want to say no.
The police are treating her like a grieving widow. They're doing their investigation into who would want to kill her husband.
Listen, is there anybody that you know that you think would want to kill your husband?
I just been on probation.
For what?
He's for stock fraud.
Stock fraud?
And in fact, she tries to steer the investigation to the victims that Mike had previously scammed money from.
Are you spending time in prison? How much?
2 years in prison and 5 years on probation, going on to 6 years.
Oh my God. And what was that for?
It was for taking money. It was like, he explained like boiler room kind of, where they would take money from people.
She tells them that he had been in prison before for fraud, that he was on probation, and that he still owed restitution, almost $200,000 to several victims.
He's been trying to get off probation, and it's just been nothing but problems the whole time that he's been trying to get off. People weren't happy that he was getting off probation because it's a lot of money he's got to pay back.
She tells them that Mike was just about to get off on probation early, and the people that he had scammed money from were very angry and upset about this.
Well, when you say people, what are you talking about? People that were involved with him before? Or?
A little bit of everything. He's constantly running into a lot of the guys that he was on probation with. It was a lot of money. It was $191,000 that he had to pay back.
He's got all these sketchy characters from his past. Yeah, they're the ones.
I guess somehow when he went away, some guys didn't go away. They left the country.
Went to prison?
Right.
Okay.
They left the country. And so somehow he was dealing with some of those guys because they thought that he owed them, and I don't know.
She gave very vague details about, maybe people that could have been angry with him. She didn't provide law enforcement with much information at all.
Well, I'm asking, if you know any names, then we can run these guys down and see what they know.
I don't know if the one guy that I'm telling you about, Pasquale, if he also went away or if he didn't.
She starts to kind of give names and tell them that there are possibilities of people that maybe had wanted to see Mike dead.
Is it Pasquale or Pasquale?
Pasquale.
Then Dahlia starts spilling some of Mike's other secrets, like his substance abuse issues.
He's recovering alcoholic.
Dahlia tells detectives that her husband Mike struggled with demons, alcohol, and drugs.
And so with him, it's very important to be on a schedule and, you know what I mean, have a system and very organized with everything.
Get up every day, go to the gym, go to Starbucks. He would go to AA meetings. He felt was so important to keep regimented. He did that to make sure that he stayed sober. And in fact, Mike would have otherwise been at the gym with Dahlia, except he was recovering from liposuction surgery.
We were supposed to go to the gym.
Oh, both of you were supposed to go?
He had 2 love handles removed from here.
And so he was late. He couldn't exercise. He couldn't go to the gym.
We haven't gone since his surgery, but every morning, 5 a.m., we're both at the gym.
You're lucky.
What?
You're lucky you went to the gym. I don't know if you know he was shot. He was shot twice. And I want you to know all this. Do you know this?
Not exactly. I mean, they told me he was shot.
He was found in the bedroom. He was shot twice in the head.
She brought up every negative detail of his life. In his moments after she learned that he had been killed.
Well, you know, he's very, he used to be a drug addict, and...
What was his drug of choice?
Crack.
Crack? I'm going to be back. What I'm going to do is call right now. I'm going to go out and get in touch with the officers at the scene. I'm going to see if the house was burglarized.
Okay.
All right, just hang on for a second.
Thank you.
So when the police exit and Dahlia was still being videotaped, as they leave the room, she starts crying.
A few moments later, the detective comes back in and he has one more question.
There's no problems between you guys, no financial problems, with your family, you and him.
No, there's nothing.
In that police interview, Dahlia paints a rather rosy picture of their relationship. No problems, no drama.
But what everyone would soon learn is there actually was trouble in paradise.
Everything seems great. At least that's what Michael thought.
What he didn't know is that Dahlia Dippolito had another man in her life.
As Dahlia Dippolito sits in that interrogation room, there is still a lot that investigators don't know about.
She uses men to give her money or to get into their lives so then she could then extract their money from them.
She knew how to use her sex appeal, and she had a lot of it, to get her way. And that's what she did very successfully with men, including Mike Dippolito.
She wanted Mike's house. She wanted all of his money.
She decided, hey, I gotta figure out a way to get his stuff. She had several men wrapped around her fingers.
One of those men was a Florida businessman, Mohammed Shihada.
He was a 32-year-old Jordanian national. He was a quasi-actor.
In fact, if you go to the site for Mohammed's talent agency, his online portfolio is still there.
He really enjoyed playing poker and gambling in Las Vegas.
How did you know Mohammed?
I met him a long time ago. He had a convenience store business, and I had actually walked into his store. And that's where we struck up conversation, and we both had Middle Eastern background, and so we just ended up developing a friendship.
And you stayed in touch for how many years?
Throughout the course of maybe like 15 years.
So you considered him a close personal friend?
A friend, I wouldn't say close.
They began a flirtation which was very heavily sexually charged. When she needed something, they would rekindle that old flame, so to speak. If she needed to vent about a guy she was dating or a relationship that she was in, she would talk to him. So in July of 2009, after Dahlia was married to Mike, she reached out to Mohammed once again, as she had done over time. She starts a narrative with him about Michael Dippolito.
Dahlia told Mohammed that she was physically abused, that he was controlling, and she just needed out of the marriage.
Were there any stresses on the marriage?
We got into little arguments and things, but it wasn't anything major.
But Dahlia tells Mohammed that her husband is abusive, emotionally abusive, so much so that a regular divorce isn't going to cut it. So she wants Mike out of her life for good and turns to Mohammed for help.
She wants for a more permanent solution to her problems.
Dahlia confides in Mohammed that she wants Mike Dippolito killed. They meet at a gas station in Boynton Beach. Dahlia tells Mohammed that she's desperate, that she needs to have Mike killed.
It's a common thread throughout these types of cases. Beautiful women, and they also often involve allegations of abuse.
Mohammed is really nervous that if Mike Dippolito is killed, that law enforcement would come back to him. And he didn't want that to happen. And he didn't want Mike to be killed.
Mohammed Shahadi is actually the person that called police and said that Dahlia Dippolito was planning to murder her husband.
We had a gentleman come into the police department advising they had some information in reference to a young lady that wanted her husband killed.
They captured this first conversation that they had with Mohammed on a tape recorder.
Okay, tell us what happened.
She asked if I knew someone who can kill her husband for her. I said, basically, no, I don't. She tells me, though, he's the nicest, sweetest nerd, but she can't stand him.
So at first we weren't sure what we had.
Do you know where she lives?
No.
At the time, we didn't know what to believe.
The last name, I don't know.
There's a gentleman who walks in. According to him, he's had a sexual relationship with this young lady, but he wasn't sure exactly where she lived or her last name.
She's maybe 5'6", 5'7", dark black hair, green eyes. She's a good-looking girl. Really good-looking girl, actually.
The fact that somebody was going to get killed, it was bothering his conscience.
Did she ask you to find someone for her?
Yes.
So after that first interview, law enforcement realizes that they're going to need to talk to Mohammed again. What cops want Mohammed to do next is bold and risky. They want to set up a sting.
They say, we want you to put a wire on, and we want you to get her to outline this plan to kill her husband.
So Mohammed morphs into a confidential informant.
We have the informant contact the suspect by phone and set up a meeting so we can ID her. The mobile gas station was one of those places where they've met before in the past, so we decided to make that the location.
Alright, you good to go? Yeah, I'm good to go. Alright, good.
So police outfit Mohammed's car with some cameras, and they put a wire on him.
And a few seconds later, she begins talking about getting her husband killed.
There's no small talk. Mohammed and Dahlia launch right into a secretly recorded conversation detailing Dahlia's murderous intentions.
At first, it seems like her motive might be Mike's money.
Honestly, you're worried because seriously you don't kill him over that much money?
It's not even over like it's not even about
Dahlia has no idea that every word coming out of her mouth is being caught on camera.
Okay, well, I'm trying to tell you, though, this guy's a professional. It's not what he doesn't get it done, that's it.
Right.
This is where he actually says he was going to introduce her to a hitman.
I know him, you know, like, he's good at it.
We realized that this guy was credible.
But now, how am I supposed to know what day he's going to do it?
We're shocked how easily she talked about getting her husband killed.
He might tell you, oh, it's like to get out of town or something for a day.
I'm not going out of town.
You even hear during the conversation her talk about no one would ever believe that she could be capable of murder.
His mom is not going to be suspicious of you or anything like
Why
that.
me? No one telling somebody, you know, nobody's going to be able to point a finger at me.
She ended up bringing $1,200 in cash. She believed that that money was going to be given to the hitman to buy a gun.
Yeah, look
I'll try.
She also bought 2 pictures.
I have a picture of him right now. You're sure everything else is okay? You're sure?
Yo, what more sure can you want? You're planning a murder. Come on, stop, yo.
She's made a down payment on death.
And now Dahlia DiPolito is about to come face to face with the assassin.
But little does she know, she's walking into a trap.
After Mohammed Shihada alerts Boynton Beach police about Dahlia DiPolito's deadly plan, Dahlia meets face-to-face with that hitman.
What she doesn't know is this hitman she's about to meet is actually Winnie Jane, Boynton Beach police officer who is working undercover on this case.
They agreed on a location, which was a CVS parking lot in the city of Boynton Beach.
Pretty much parked in this exact spot right here. We had 2 cameras in the car. The cameras were positioned in the back seat. You can't help being a bit nervous as you're doing this.
Remember, there's 1,000 things that can go wrong.
She parked and got into the car and she said, hey.
Dahlia shows up to the meeting with Whitty, and she's wearing a cute little sundress. She's almost flirtatious with him in the car.
I wanted to make sure that she caught my attention in my eyes. The way she was dressed, pretty much, I'm like, okay, you know, she wants to show off her body. So, you know, I have to give her a compliment. I told her, hey, you know, you look good.
Man, you look good.
She clearly thought she was talking to a hitman, and to her, this was something that had to be done.
So how soon can we get everything going?
Well, that's up to you.
I'm here to tell my
were shocked how easily she talked about getting her husband killed.
She gave me definitely a sense of urgency. You cannot wait to make it happen. If you're going to make it happen, you have to make it happen this week.
I'll give you a quick breakdown of what I've done so far.
We talked about money, how much money she's going to pay me. At one point she said, well, I thought that I already gave you $1,200.
So I went to buy my heat, my gun, okay, a couple hundred, for other people to do things. You know what I mean?
When I had to explain to her, $100 is nothing. I had to buy a gun, I had to buy a phone, I had to buy this car.
As she starts talking, what's going on in the minds of the police officers is, wow, this woman is real. This plot is real.
As a matter of fact, I've already spent more money, just to get it here.
Right.
Trying to tell her, look, however, which way you want it done, I'll do it.
So I just want to make sure that, this is what you want. Sure you want to do.
When she's meeting with the hitman, he's telling her, look, there is no turning back. When I leave you today, you have no way to reach me.
I explained to Dahlia that after today, she wouldn't be able to find me to cancel this whole plan that we put together.
When it's done, you have to have an option to change your mind.
And that's when Dahlia DiPolito says the phrase that goes around the world.
I'm positive, 5,000% sure.
Okay.
No, there's no, I'm already. I'm positive, 5,000% sure.
Her line is classic. I am 5,000% sure. Right? So it's, she is so committed to this.
5,000% sure.
I didn't think she was going to be that open. I'm 5,000% sure. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. But I'm not.
So she told me she may look like an innocent little girl, but she's a whole lot tougher than she looks. The most surprising thing about my meeting with Dahlia was how adamant she was in making sure that this was done.
All right, well, good morning. By the time you get back from the gym, you're going to find dead body in the house. All right?
As the Boynton Beach Police Department are preparing for their starring role in this true crime drama, Cops television show are like flies on the wall, recording every bit of it.
Our police officers, our detectives, our professional staff, they every day are doing things in our community to keep people safe and to save lives. And for us, it was a great way to showcase that and to let the community and the larger community know what these heroes are doing every day.
Now, the Boynton Beach Police say that show had been interested in their department for several months. So arguably, their cameras never captured a scene quite like this one. They are about to hit the jackpot.
Everybody knows why we're here. Chachi, you and Brian will go with me. Frank or somebody will call the wife.
Just like the undercover instructed her to leave the house, she did.
And she grabs a smoothie, and she grabs her purse, and she says, bye, Mike, and she goes off to the gym.
Dahlia is at the local LA Fitness, but back at her condo, police are there setting up an elaborate trap.
That looks good. I like it.
We've had set up a fake crime scene around the house, yellow tape around the streets, around the house. We make it look like her husband had gotten killed inside the house.
At 6:21 a.m., as Dahlia DiPolito was working out, that's when she misses that call from the sergeant at the Boynton Beach Police Department.
Sergeant Ramsey, help you. Is this Mr. Bellotti, please?
He intentionally pronounces her name wrong to throw her off.
Once he got her on the phone, told her that something had happened and we needed her to come to the house.
They needed to break some news to her.
No, ma'am, I need to talk to you. Ma'am, I'll tell you everything you need to know when you get here.
As Dahlia approaches, she sees what's really a crime scene. She sees police, tape blocked off.
So the condo is surrounded by police cars. There's a crime scene van, there's crime scene tape, her apartment's roped off with the tape.
The front door to the townhouse is wide open with black fingerprint dust everywhere.
Dahlia arrives from LA Fitness from going to the gym.
And she rushes up. Dahlia DiPolito doesn't know she's being set up right now.
Really buff police sergeant tells her, your husband has been murdered.
Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed.
Before the words are even out of his mouth, she starts crying.
And he even hugs her, and she figures she's got them wrapped around her finger just like all these other men. And little does she know, her world is about to come crashing down.
Tell you, ma'am, he's been killed.
Going into his arms.
She's wailing.
As I watch her breakdown as she starts to cry before the word killed is even said, this was the role that she had practiced.
And the Riot acting continues when they get Dahlia into that interrogation room. Everyone was in character that morning, including the undercover police officer, Woody Jean, who suddenly appears in the interrogation room to make a cameo appearance of his own.
You know who this guy is?
And tell us everything you know about who he knows, who he's connected to. Don't worry, we've already taken care of dogs with animal control for right now. Everything's under control.
Dahlia's acting, and the police are acting. As she's brought to the police station, everyone involved is faking it.
They think they have the goods to charge Dahlia DiPolito, but the police still want to see if they can make her crack. They are going to give her every opportunity to own up to what they suspect she did.
You have the right to remain silent and not answer any questions. Do you understand that?
She absolutely thinks that she has everybody fooled.
He was found in the bedroom. He was shot twice in the head.
He wouldn't open the door unless it's somebody that he knows because he don't open for anybody.
She believes that she's going to be able to convince law enforcement that she truly loved Mike and that she had nothing to do with his murder.
When the police asked Dahlia if she wanted her husband killed by any chance, she denied it, completely denied it. No.
You wouldn't want to kill him. Not at all.
Me are fine, like there's nothing.
Dahlia DiPolito is pretending she knew nothing about this, and the police are pretending like her husband is actually dead.
Did you want your husband dead?
No, absolutely not.
Did you want any harm to befall him? Never.
No, never.
Suddenly, the tide begins to turn, and the police get tough with Dahlia.
They've had enough with her charade and with her lies.
Police are thinking that by ushering in that would-be hitman, the man that she paid to murder her husband, surely that will get her to come clean.
Do you know her?
Put your head up and look at her.
Put your head up.
I've never seen her.
What were you doing coming out of her house? Came out here.
Inside, I was kind of laughing because I knew that I spent a good 25 minutes talking to her, and hearing her saying that she's never met me was pretty shocking.
She denies ever meeting him, and she doesn't know who he is.
And then the detective all of a sudden goes from being the grandfatherly figure that he had been into more of a aggressive.
You're going to jail today for solicitation of murder. You're under arrest. That's an undercover police officer. We filmed everything that you did. Recorded everything that you did. You're going to jail for solicitation of first-degree murder of your husband. Did you hear what I just told you?
I heard what you said, but I didn't.
Everything, listen to me. Everything has been recorded. You were photographed in a convertible. You sat in this car in the front of CBS. What do you want to do?
I don't think for a second that she thought that investigators in the interrogation room were going to turn on her.
Listen to me.
I didn't do anything.
You're going to
I
jail.
didn't do anything, please. I didn't do anything.
Can you talk about that moment when you realized the tables were turned?
I panicked. I was just completely frozen, and I couldn't move. I couldn't really process and digest everything that was going on.
Shockingly, the Boynton Beach Police Department media director posted the video of the staged crime scene.
The Boynton Beach Police uploaded the video the same day.
This was our way of getting video to our local media. We uploaded the video just as we did dozens of other videos.
We see this stunning video of this takedown, this woman crying and wailing. We'd never seen anything like it.
It's always a risky move for the authorities to release any information during an investigation. But Florida is one of the most open states in the country when it comes to sharing information with the public.
In a matter of hours, we were getting phone calls from national and international media.
I thought it was going to be a very hot story. There's the jilted husband, there's money, there's video.
If you want to help your husband, okay? If you want to help your husband,
We were stunned. We were delighted.
When law enforcement confronts her with all of the evidence that she wants Mike DiPolito dead, Dahlia denies that.
Listen to
I
me.
didn't do anything.
You're going
I
to
didn't
jail.
do anything, please. I didn't do anything.
She's sticking to her script. She's crying.
And with the spotlight on Dahlia, the grand finale is about to unfold.
So finally they say, Guess what? He's alive.
He's alive.
Come here, please. Come here. Mike, come here, please. Come here.
3 words to describe Dahlia. Liar, liar, liar.
Give me 3 words to describe yourself. Who is Dahlia DiPolito?
Understanding, sweet, and compassionate.
3 words to describe Dahlia. Liar, liar, liar.
I didn't do anything, and I didn't want anything.
It wasn't like, kill him softly, don't hurt him. It was like, just blow the guy's brains out and, can I get a cheese sandwich with that?
I'm positive, 5,000% Charlotte.
I see somebody who's struggling.
What? How is she struggling if she's 5,000% sure? The whole crime's caught on tape. I mean, what do you do with that?
It was a show, it was a tape. That was the purpose of it.
You were acting in those tapes.
Yes.
Liar, liar, liar.
He comes up with a defense that rocks the community. This was all for a reality show. She knew she was being taped. She and Mike wanted to be stars.
The thing about reality TV is that anybody can do it. Anybody can become famous.
I don't know what reality show a 40-year-old convicted felon could be on. They wanted to post it on YouTube to try to get acting parts. That was the plan.
It was so far out of left field that they might just believe it.
Even now, 11 years after the story first broke, the twists keep coming in the Dahlia DiPolito story.
On August 5th, 2009, Dahlia DiPolito's life changed forever.
Thank you for coming. I'm sorry to call you.
First, police tell her her husband is dead.
Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am. He's been killed.
Then she's told she's been caught on tape planning his murder.
You're going to
I didn't
jail.
do anything, please. I didn't do anything.
Tell me you didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything.
You're going to jail today.
You kept saying, I didn't do anything. Just over and over and over again. Was that all you could think of to say?
They were accusing me of trying to have my husband killed, and I didn't. So that's what I kept continuously telling them.
When they turn the table, she doesn't fess up. She just keeps denying everything. And lacking that confession, they kept trying to shock her more and more.
And this is the part where what happens in that police department will go down in the history of detective work. This is a masterstroke.
The ultimate shock, you could call it a resurrection of sorts. Police tell her that her dead husband isn't actually dead.
Your husband is well and alive.
Thank God.
Oh, yeah, thank God.
Please.
No, he doesn't want to see you.
They bring Mike in. Look, your husband's alive. We've got you.
Oh my God.
He's alive.
The show Cops is at the station capturing Mike's reaction.
Come here, please. Come here.
She keeps begging him to come inside the room, which he doesn't.
Mike, come here. Come here, please.
She sees her husband, and he's alive. What? You're alive?
This is a dead man walking and talking. You never see this happen.
Can't fix this.
Oh my God, I didn't do anything.
I heard you.
Mike, come here, please. Come here.
All of her skills as a femme fatale will start rolling in. Mike, come here, baby, come to me.
With cameras rolling inside and outside the interrogation room, it is reality TV on steroids.
I don't know what's going on, please.
For Mike DiPolito, it's a surreal love story that quickly turned into a nightmare.
He never saw it coming. For Mike, this was a whirlwind romance. He was head over heels in love with Dahlia.
I met Dahlia and we got along very well. There was never any friction. We never argued. How can I say? Our sex life was incredible.
Meanwhile, the entire time she's plotting behind his back.
There's this side to his wife he has no idea about.
Mike DiPolito insists that the accusations made by Dahlia DiPolito that he's abusive are totally false. Still, Dahlia secretly wants out of the relationship. And authorities say if she can get out with a pile of Mike's money, that's even better.
Mike DiPolito still owed $191,000 restitution, and he was on probation for decades. If he could make that restitution, he could make an argument to get off probation.
But he says Dahlia told him she could help him with that.
Dahlia said If you can come up with $100,000, I will take $91,000 of my own. I'll put it with your money and we'll send it to the lawyer together. It was her responsibility to wire the money to Mike's lawyer.
She says she's helping him. He thinks that she is. But in reality, she's doing anything but helping him.
Soon Mike notices odd things are starting to happen.
Before I met her, I don't think I had a run-in with the police since I've been home from prison. I meet her, I'm running into the cops more than I ran into the cops probably ever in my life.
Mike will soon find out that someone is trying to frame him for crimes he didn't commit.
On 2 occasions, drugs were planted in his vehicle. Mike decides to take Dahlia away for a couple of days to the Ritz-Carlton. Mike is stopped by a police officer. And the police officer tells Mike that they had received an anonymous call saying that he was dealing drugs out of his Tahoe.
He goes, do you mind if we search? I said, absolutely, go ahead. He searched the truck, didn't find anything. It was very odd. And then the next day, I go to get gas in the truck, and I find a bag of pills. It looked like cocaine in there, and that's when that hit me. I said, wait a minute. You know, somebody put this in my truck and called the police on me. They just didn't find it.
Authorities say Dahlia figures he's an ex-con, and if she can get him sent away for drugs, he'll be gone for a really long time, and she's home free.
I remember I looked at Dahlia, I said, did you put drugs in my truck? And she adamantly denied it, so I let it go. Fine. But you know, every instinct's telling me that it doesn't make sense.
In fact, according to authorities, what she's really trying to do is get Mike DiPolito out of her life.
And that $100,000 he'd given to Dahlia, she was supposed to wire it to his lawyer, but she hadn't.
I knew clearly she stole my money. She's telling me she's going to get it back, and I'm doing everything in my power to believe her.
He just stays in the relationship. He seemed to be, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a chump for love.
Your ex-husband Michael claims you stole a lot of money from him. Money that was supposed to be used to pay his restitution. Did that happen?
No. It's money that he was hiding.
Police say that after her plot to try to get him jailed doesn't work, she ups the ante.
One morning, he gets a knock at the door.
We knocked on his door, and we actually woke him up.
All I see is a bunch of cops, and I'm like, oh boy. I go downstairs.
Police department, open your door.
I hesitantly open the door.
First, he didn't know what was going on.
I thought they were there to arrest me.
And we ended up telling him what we were there for.
You have to come with us. Your wife's going to have you killed today.
Your wife has hired a person to kill you. Just relax.
Take it easy.
Clearly, this just hits him like a ton of bricks. I mean, he literally takes a step back.
We ended up taking him out of the house and driving him straight to the Point Beach Police Department.
You're already know over here. Your wife hired somebody to kill you.
I also played a little bit of audio where she says, hey, I'm 5,000% sure that I want him killed.
I'm positive, like 5,000% sure.
It wasn't like, kill him softly, don't hurt him. It was like, just blow the guy's brains out and, can I get a cheese sandwich with that?
Even from behind bars, Dahlia is not finished trying to manipulate Mike DiPolito when she makes an astonishing phone call.
Well, yeah, what's up? Nothing, Mike. Come here.
Is she ready to confess, or is this something else?
Everybody asked me, why'd you take the phone call? I had to take the phone call.
As Dahlia DiPolito is being led out of the Boynton Beach Police Department and over to Palm Beach County Jail, she has an audience.
The press, having seen the video released by police, is there to greet her.
Already, the media is out there with their cameras capturing it.
I didn't do anything, and I didn't plot anything.
You were headed to jail. What was that first night like?
It was a complete nightmare. I wasn't even officially in jail as the tapes were getting released, and they were already all over the news. They were everywhere.
Till death do them part, and it's all caught on video.
In the hours since the police released the tape to YouTube, the name Dahlia DiPolito is making the rounds and is making a big giant splash on cable TV.
Bombshell tonight.
A newlywed in Boynton Beach, Florida.
Work it, cry. Swallow, was a cop. I could just watch the video over and over. It just is one of those clips that never gets old. The crying, the screaming, the bending over. Meryl Streep, wherever you are tonight, don't worry. You're safe.
You became a headline around the world. Everyone knew your name.
It was awful.
While in jail, Dahlia makes a few tearful phone calls, bursts to her mother.
Hello? Mom, I'm in jail. You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. You did it. I know you didn't. I know you did it. Okay. How many times did I tell you to leave that guy? How many times did I tell you?
But her next phone call is unfathomable. From the jail, she calls Mike, the man police say she has just tried to have killed, and offers him no apologies.
Well, hello. Hey, it's me. Yeah, what's up? Nothing, Mike. Just come here.
Everybody asked me, why'd you take the phone call? I had to take the phone call. I had to hear what she was going to say. I couldn't help myself to not take that phone call.
Mike, please, I need an attorney. Can you please help me? You said you wanted to have me killed. I heard that. It's not true. That is not true. How can you believe that? I heard your voice.
Frankly, it's unbelievable that Dahlia called her husband, the victim in this case, the target of her actions, the person she wanted dead, to ask him to help her.
It is just unbelievable to listen to. The fact that she thought that she could demand that Mike help her is just on another level. And he's even trying to give her advice as to what to do while she's in jail.
You're going to be lying around in there for a little while, a couple days. You need to just try and just go with it. And keep to yourself and don't say a lot.
I know she's never been in there before. I mean, it's not a nice place. I tried to tell her, stop acting, the way you're acting, or you're going to have a rough time in there.
I love you. Everybody treated me awful.
Things get spelled out for Mike that he was a very lucky man. Prosecutors say that Mike actually survived an earlier attempt on his life.
When Mohammed Shihada was giving a statement to police, he told them that Dahlia had poisoned Mike's Starbucks iced tea with antifreeze. So law enforcement, they just ask him, was there ever an incident with iced tea? And Mike then realized that he was a lot closer to his demise than he ever realized.
She went out and came back with some Starbucks iced teas. I take a sip and I spit it out so fast. It was terrible and I didn't think anything of it. I only took one sip. I was sick for about 2 weeks.
Dahlia's attorney said she never poisoned Mike.
Mike doesn't end up helping her find an attorney, but the attorney she does find ends up presenting one bizarre, wacky, intriguing defense.
It was a stunt. It was a hoax. A ruse, a plan that Mike DiPolito hoped to capture the attention of someone in reality TV.
You were acting in those tapes.
Yes.
It didn't make an iota of sense to me.
It was so far out of left field that they might just believe it.
We begin with the trial of a Florida woman arrested for plotting to kill her husband.
Your trial. Can you describe what that experience was like for you?
Confusing, really difficult. The cameras were there. The TV shows were actually filming the whole thing as I'm entering the courthouse.
Dahlia DiPolito entered the courthouse in a buttoned-up white sweater to meet the men and women who will likely decide her fate.
I have never had a case as a prosecutor that was so strong.
I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. But I'm not.
You will see how determined she was to have Mike DiPolito, her husband, killed.
In opening statements, the prosecutor, Elizabeth Parker, wants to make sure these jurors don't believe that Dahlia is this little innocent figure and that she is a much darker, more evil person.
He asked her, "Are you sure you want to kill him?" Without hesitation, as if she had ice running through her veins, she says, "There's no changing. I'm determined already." My biggest concern, the evidence seemed to be overwhelming. But
you have Mike, who's got a shady past. I knew the defense would make him out to be a con man.
Please tell us your name. Michael DiPolito.
What's awesome about this case is that the jury actually gets to hear from the victim. In a plot to kill somebody, the victim is almost always dead.
I don't know how to explain it. I just don't know how to explain it.
He was a likable character. I knew that I just needed to get him on the stand for long enough to have the jury like him too. What did you think of your marriage?
I thought it was great. I was having fun with my wife. It's getting off probation, I thought.
Did the defendant seem happy?
Yes.
He completely owns up to his past.
I'm a convicted felon. I go to probation every month and report. I hold my head up as high as I can.
On cross-examination, when Dahlia DiPolito's lawyer keeps asking him and keeps repeating the word probation, Mike DiPolito bites back and makes the entire courtroom laugh.
You're like a parrot.
A parrot? Yeah. What does that mean? I've been called a lot of things. What's a parrot?
Did you do that on probation? Were you on probation? Did you do that on probation? Were you on probation? You know what I'm talking about. I'm just having fun with you. Come on, I'm with you.
You're having fun with me? Let me ask you something. Is this fun, Mr. DiPolito?
This sucks. Okay, it's ridiculous. I'm not here. We're not here because of me. I might as well. You might as well put me up next. I mean, what are we doing here?
But another Mike is about to make an entrance into the trial. Mike Stanley, an ex-boyfriend of Dahlia's,
And you're gonna meet Michael Stanley.
who prosecutors say discussed with Dahlia planting the drugs in Mike DiPolito's truck.
So, the prosecution introduced tons of text messages between Dahlia and Mike Stanley.
They were talking about everything they wanted to do once DiPolito was out the way.
So their X-rated conversation is read on the stand by Boynton Beach detective Alex Marino.
Do you want my hot, tight body all over you?
You can just see how uncomfortable this police officer is. He's reading these steamy text messages.
Love you so much. I'm so horny for you. Some of the stuff was kind of cheesy. I mean, I had to read it up on the stand. It was not my best moment. Baby, I love you, and I only want to you.
She's telling Mike Stanley, once this guy's gone, you and I can have the life we've imagined. I will have Michael's money, we'll have this condo, everything will be good.
Greed was the very basic core of why Dahlia did this.
Parker says when Dahlia's plan to put her husband back in prison failed, that's when she took things a step further.
Yeah, but killing somebody, come on. Nobody's gonna be able to point a finger at me. The plan is already, I'm positive, like 5,000% sure,
After the prosecution rests, now it's the defense's turn, and they are going to use that infamous video for their own purposes.
That's where this novel defense theory came into play. A defense theory that was actually a little hard to believe.
The plot for the contract killing of Mike DiPolito is never real.
He comes up with a defense that rocks the community, which is, this was all for a reality show. She knew she was being taped. She and Mike wanted to be stars. So they came up with this idea, and it was all a hoax. It was Mike DiPolito's idea, and Mike DiPolito was in on it, and she's not guilty.
It was a stunt. It was a hoax. A ruse, a plan that Mike DiPolito hoped to capture the attention of someone in reality TV.
Dahlia's lawyers claim that Mike and Dahlia DiPolito wanted to be famous. They wanted to be like the stars of Cheaters from Jersey Shore.
Selnick presents a computer forensic expert who found that Dahlia had searched reality shows on her computer.
The website name says welcome to realitytvcastingcall.com.
It fits with his obsession about his appearance, his vanity, and others might be interested in his reality.
I was shocked. I mean, where's the evidence that this was a reality show plot?
Listen to me for a second, okay?
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything.
At no time does she ever stand up and say, well, hold on a minute. This was all, Michael, Mohammed, wait a minute. This is all a setup. We were all acting, right? Wouldn't be that the first thing out of your mouth if you're about to be arrested?
And not only that, Mike DiPolito strenuously denied that it had anything to do with reality TV trials.
Did you ever have aspirations to be on a reality show?
No.
Did you ever act out any scenarios with a defendant for a reality show?
No. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I couldn't even believe they made something like that up. I don't know what reality show a 40-year-old man, 40-year-old convicted felon could be on.
This defense received a fair amount of eyebrow raising.
She didn't want to kill her husband. She just wanted to be on a reality show.
A pretty shocking twist in the case of the Florida wife caught on tape taking a contract out on her husband. Well, we got to bring in our legal analyst, Dan Abrams, on this one. And Dan, all of us just shook our heads when we heard this.
I've seen a lot of wild and crazy defenses in my day, and this is certainly one of the wildest and one of the craziest. The reaction to this defense was, are you kidding me? This is an almost impossible defense to win. And so I think in order for it to succeed, Dahlia Dippolito would have to take the witness stand.
Judge, defense is going to rest.
But Dahlia does not end up testifying.
It was a daily, yes, you're going to testify, you're not going to testify. And
Did you want to testify?
Yes, I did.
She's like poison candy. Attractive on the outside, but deadly on the inside.
I was confident in the case that I had presented. I was truly concerned that it was such a bizarre defense.
I've been advised that the jury has reached a verdict.
Except, this was nowhere near the end of this story.
Now closing arguments continue in the Dahlia Dippolito murder for hire trial.
And this case will go to the jury before lunch.
It was a typically hot day in Florida, but that is not why Dahlia Dippolito was sweating. She was facing up to 30 years behind bars.
Waiting for the verdict. What was that like?
It's nerve-wracking. It's just really stressful, really tense.
I've been advised that the jury has reached a verdict.
The jury took just 3 hours to come to a decision.
We find the defendant guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder.
I was numb. It wasn't at all what I was expecting to hear. I never had the impression or the understanding from my attorney that losing was a possibility. Everything was always, you know what, we got this.
Wow.
We have really good poker faces.
Yeah, I guess so. We all just said, well, she's guilty. It was just kind of unanimous.
And the defense didn't present anything that really represented this was for a reality TV show.
Then she said, I am 5,000% sure. And that did it for me.
There is absolutely no moral justification for your conduct. It was pure evil. I'm sentencing you to 20 years in the Department of Corrections.
I looked at her in that courtroom and I just said to myself, man, this is sad. I wish we were never here. And as far as the sentence, I'm 5% happy with it.
That seemed to be it. Case closed. Except, this was nowhere near the end of this story.
Everybody thinks, bye-bye, Dahlia, that's it. But it turns out she got an appeal.
In the last hours, the Black Widow, Dahlia Dippolito, set to walk free.
The appeals court tosses out the conviction. Dahlia's lawyers argue there was a problem during jury selection. And then, 3 years later, a court agrees. And so Dahlia Dippolito is getting a new trial.
Were you surprised?
The first piece of good news throughout the whole process.
So now we move on to Dahlia round 2. That's right, she's coming back a second time. And this time, there's a new cast of players.
For this second trial, Dahlia hires 2 high-profile lawyers she's seen on TV, Mark Eiglarsh and Brian Claypool.
Defense attorney Brian Claypool. See you both.
I am 5,000% sure Dahlia Dippolito is innocent.
Dahlia's new lawyers allow her to speak publicly for the first time, and that's when I had the opportunity to exclusively interview her. Your every move is monitored. Clearly the strategy was for Dahlia to try and undergo a bit of an image rehabilitation. When people hear the name Dahlia Dippolito, what do you think comes to mind?
Everything negative.
Give me 3 words to describe yourself. Who is Dahlia Dippolito?
Understanding, sweet, and compassionate.
Because it was a pre-trial interview, Dahlia's lawyers wouldn't let her discuss certain parts of the case, particularly those videotapes.
I'm positive, like 5,000% Charlotte.
Okay. Did you hire a hitman to kill your husband?
No.
How do you explain then what we saw and what we heard on those videotapes?
I'd like to be able to explain that to you right now, but I can't because the attorneys legally have told me that we're saving that for our day in court.
In our interview, Dahlia's lawyer, Brian Claypool, reiterated that reality TV defense that we saw in her first trial.
Dahlia, her ex Mike, and this gentleman Mohammed were all part of this collaboration to put together a YouTube video of a scene where they're hiring somebody to kill somebody. They wanted to submit that, post it on YouTube to try to get acting parts. was the plan. It got out of control.
I'm positive, like 5,000% sure.
5,000% sure, not 100% sure, not 1,000% sure, but 5,000% sure. How do you explain that?
I look at that video and I see somebody who's struggling with whether she's really sure.
She's struggling? What?
Why? Well,
how is she struggling if she's 5,000% sure?
Well, you might find that humorous, but when I hear people say they're sure, I'm 110% sure. She's trying to overcompensate.
As for Mohammed, he denies working with Mike and Dahlia to make a video to try and get acting jobs.
Mike DiPolito says he's never even met Mohammed.
What do you say to people who say you're just denying the undeniable? That this is an open and shut case?
That now with the attorneys that I have, so much is coming to light to where it would just be insane to not believe me. The tape was a show, it was a tape. That was the purpose of it.
You were acting in those tapes?
Yes.
But you're telling the truth now?
Yes.
Why should we believe you?
If it's what happened, it's the truth.
Dahlia DiPolito escorted into court by her attorneys for her second trial.
Dahlia's second trial is going to shock a lot of people in a number of ways.
Claypool dropped this bomb.
He just throws off like it's nothing. And by the way, if you send her to prison, you're going to be separating her from her infant son. What infant son?
Walking on the sidewalk right now, this doesn't happen very often.
No, this doesn't happen at all. This is the first time I've had to walk in a long time.
Yeah, your every move is monitored. I took a rare walk with Dahlia DiPolito outside her lawyer's office while she was on house arrest, awaiting her second trial. She was living in her mother's house, tethered to an ankle bracelet.
This is what it looks like, and it doesn't come off at all.
You've been living under house arrest for the better part of 5 years, nearly 6 years. What's been the hardest part?
Not knowing when it's over, not being able to leave, watching everybody around me being able to come and go as they want, and I can't do that.
After Dahlia's first trial, she was convicted. Prosecutor Liz Parker wrote a book about it called Poison Candy.
This is what she wrote about you. She was poison candy, sweet, delicious, mouth-watering on the outside, but deadly within, and designed to cripple the innocent. What's it like hearing those words?
It's hurtful. When I found out that the book was out, I was suicidal.
Do you think people will change their minds about you when they hear from you in your second trial?
I'd like to believe so.
It's at a pre-trial hearing, part of an attempt by her lawyers to get the case dismissed, where Dahlia finally has her chance to tell her side of the story under oath.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You take a witness stand on my oath.
It's not unusual at all for a defendant to take the stand in a pre-trial hearing, as long as it's not in front of a jury.
She actually takes the stand, and she gets up and describes that I was acting, she says. I was acting.
We worked together on an acting project. We were all going to work on an actor's presentation to put up on social media.
That did not go well for Dahlia. Under cross-examination, the prosecutor, he just tore her story apart. He was, okay, first of all, where's the script? Where are the notes? Wouldn't you have production notes?
Where was your script this day?
What do you mean, where was it? It wasn't there. We looked at the script and we didn't take it with us.
The prosecution punches holes in this reality TV defense. One of the questions was, this is all about reality TV. How come you can't clearly see your face, with the cameras in the back of the car?
How come you can't see any of it?
I wasn't the one taking it. I don't know.
She had so many holes in her story, it made no sense.
Her true self shined through. She was so not convincing at that pretrial hearing under oath that the court ruled against her.
She loses the hearing, and so the motion to dismiss the case fails.
9 months later, it's Dahlia's second trial.
The high-profile retrial getting underway today in West Palm Beach. Dahlia DiPolito getting a second chance at freedom after her first conviction was overturned.
Trial 2 was handled quite a bit differently by the prosecution. They were going to stick to those videos, and that was it. They didn't even call Michael DiPolito to testify.
Because the rest of the evidence was so powerful, my prosecutors felt that they would just go with the slimmed-down version of the case.
Her words on those videos prove the crime charge.
In the second trial, Dahlia's lawyers abandoned this reality TV defense.
The defense focused on the misconduct, they said, of the Boynton Beach Police Department. They were trying to flip the script and put all the blame on the police.
So far, no mention of that reality show acting defense that she had talked about previously.
Gone is this reality TV nonsense. Now they're leveling their charges against the Boynton Beach Police Department because Boynton Beach had brought cops in.
That opening theme song, Bad Boys, is so synonymous with the show that is supposed to put a spotlight on the good work police do every day. At the beginning, the Boynton Beach Police Department really wanted to highlight their professionalism by participating with the Cops television show, but at the trial, the defense really hammered them and went after them, effectively putting them on trial.
This is a fake crime scene, right? Right?
Yes.
It's all pretend, right?
Yes.
It's all made up, right?
Yes.
You think that's a good use of taxpayer money?
My opinion doesn't matter.
The presence of the Cops TV show created a frenzy within the Boynton Beach Police Department to manufacture good television. They tossed Dahlia DiPolito under the bus. They made this way more than it ever was. And they could care less about her constitutional rights.
The Boynton Beach police said there was no wrongdoing and they were just trying to gather evidence.
Cops filming with the Boynton Beach Police Department had nothing to do with this investigation. It was just a coincidence as far as timing was concerned.
Then the defense pulls out its ace card, and it's a showstopper.
Claypool gets up, he's making this dramatic closing argument, and he just throws off like it's nothing.
Give her that freedom back to go home to her family and her infant son.
By the way, if you send her to prison, you're going to be separating her from her infant son.
We all sort of are like the reporters in the back row. We're all sort of like, did I just hear that she has a child?
The latest bombshell was dropped last night during closing argument.
Turns out it was the appliance repairman. He came to her house, they fell in love, she got pregnant, and she had a baby, all on house arrest.
And right now, we're on verdict watch in the Dahlia DiPolito retrial.
I think there was a general expectation that she would be convicted.
A bombshell announcement in the murder-for-hire case against Dahlia DiPolito.
We, the jury, feel that we cannot reach a unanimous decision.
The jury telling the judge late today they are deadlocked.
I must declare a mistrial this time. There were 3 votes for guilty and 3 votes for not guilty.
Courtroom shocker, Dahlia DiPolito walking out a free woman after a judge declared a mistrial in her murder-for-hire retrial.
I can count on one finger the number of people in this country who felt we even had a chance in this case.
Whenever you don't get a conviction, you're disappointed. But I knew that we had a great team and we would do it again and perhaps do it a little differently.
Immediately after trial number 2, the state attorney, Dave Ehrenberg, said, "We are taking her to trial again."
There was not a second when we thought that we would let her go free. Not a second.
Prosecutors vowing to try her a 3rd time.
So now we're going on to Dahlia Chapter 3.
This is the 3rd time DiPolito has been on trial for this murder-for-hire case.
Heading into the 3rd trial, prosecutors are certainly hoping they can finally close the book on this case.
We knew she tried to commit murder, and she had gotten away with it thus far. And until we heard the word guilty, we were not going to be able to exhale fully.
This is the 3rd time DiPolito has been on trial for this murder-for-hire case.
Well, the prosecutors for the 3rd trial this time went back to the original strategy of putting on more of a prosecution.
We wanted the jury to get more context. We wanted the jury to see Michael DiPolito.
Introduce yourself to the jury for the record.
Hi, my name's Mike DiPolito.
By humanizing the victim, you impress upon them truly the importance of this case. It's vitally important that they put him on the stand.
Did her arrest for solicitation to commit first-degree murder shock you?
Yes.
Would it work? Well, in this third trial, it didn't take long for the jury to make its decision.
A verdict for the woman on trial in a murder for hire.
Well, some say 3 times a charm, but not for Dahlia DiPolito.
She was found guilty in 90 minutes. We were all a bit stunned. There was apparently no doubt in the jurors' mind.
16 years behind bars. That is the sentence for Dahlia DiPolito.
Dahlia DiPolito expressionless inside a Palm Beach County courtroom today, moments after learning her fate.
Dahlia's current release date is 2032. If she serves the entirety of that sentence, she'd be 49 years old when released.
Dahlia, in jail, heads up a Bible study group. She misses her child dearly. Her mom has stepped up immensely to help take care of her little boy. He's a preschooler, and he comes to visit his mom in jail at least once a month. And Dahlia has described him as being very playful, very happy, very outgoing. She is still determined to get a new trial and to get vindicated.
Dahlia's attorneys have tried to get the verdict thrown out again.
She tried to get her case all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Earlier this year, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear Dahlia's appeal.
The Dahlia DiPolito saga is finally over. The reality show is done. The last chapter has been written.
We're still fighting, and we're going to file a federal brief to attempt to get a new trial for Dahlia.
After she left the prosecutor's office, Elizabeth Parker became Mike DiPolito's attorney and even helped get him off probation.
He paid all of the restitution that was owed to the victims.
Mike got engaged and seems to be moving forward with his life.
How much do you love this?
I love him a lot.
It's nice. Sometimes it's hard to accept something this good's happening to you.
He's very lucky to be alive.
It's not been an easy journey for him. He truly thought Dahlia was the love of his life.
Did you ever love Mike DiPolito?
Yes. I married him because I loved him. I was in a relationship with him because I loved him.
And now?
Now I wish I never would have met him.
Oh, I feel the same way. I wish I would have made a left, not a right. Trust me.
He just couldn't believe that he'd lost another son. Just really broke him.
When the villagers found out, they were shocked. Because it's such a quiet, peaceful village.
It was a pre-planned and well thought out murder.
In April 2003, the Nottingham village of Edwinstowe was shocked by the news that one of his residents had been found dead in the room of a local hotel, with his wrists and his neck elaborately bound. Was this a bondage session gone wrong? Or was it? In the heart of Sherwood Forest is the Nottinghamshire village of Edwinstowe. Legend has it that the village church was where Robin Hood married Maid Marian, and it still retained all of its charm.
Edwinstowe's a quiet village. It's a very tight-knit community. Lots of very friendly people willing to talk to you on the street and help you out when you're in need.
On the evening of 25th of April 2003, panicked Edwinstowe resident Carol Croydon contacted her brother-in-law concerned about her missing husband, Philip.
I had a phone call from Carol asking me if Phil was with me. I said, no, he's not with me. Why was there a problem? She said he'd gone missing and she didn't know where he was. I was just a little worried because it just wasn't like Phil to do that, to disappear without saying anything to anyone. I left it for probably 15-20 minutes and thinking, what could have happened, where could he have gone? So I called Phil on his mobile. It went straight to Anne's phone as though his phone was switched off. After that I rang Carol and said, look, I've tried to contact Phil. His phone's just gone straight to voicemail and I don't know where he is. I contacted my sister, I think, then, and told her what was going off, but not to tell my parents because the amount of stress they've suffered in the past with losing to other children, so I didn't want to worry them. So we kept it to ourselves that, we couldn't find Phil and no one knew where he was.
Although he hadn't told his parents, Stephen did share his concerns with his sister.
He told me that Phil had gone missing, and he'd been missing overnight, but I shouldn't worry about it because he'd spoken to Carol, and Carol had said that she thought maybe Phil was suffering from depression.
Initially, Carol's assurances did the job of calming the family down, but it didn't last long, and they reported Philip missing to the police before going to bed.
I had a few hours sleep, and then when I woke in the morning, first thing I did was to ring Carol to see if he'd turned up at home. He wasn't at home, and then I just rang his mobile again, and it went straight to answer phone again. At that point I decided maybe I should go and look for him, because if it fell out, he may have gone somewhere and just parked up for the night and spent the night in his car.
I came and parked down here on the Saturday morning about 8:30, because this is the area where myself and my brother used to fish all the time. I went over to the nature reserve area first, which is one of the popular fishing spots where we used to go. Couldn't see anything. Then went down to the church over there, nothing down there. I then drove across the bridge and down towards the river, searching all the lakes, but I couldn't see anything.
By now, Stephen's brother Philip had been missing for over 10 hours.
At that point I was very worried, because him not responding to any calls, not letting anyone know where he was, totally out of character for Phil. Normally, he's very family loving, and he wouldn't put us through any, especially Mum and Dad, he wouldn't put us through that sort of stress. So at that point I feared there was something worse.
I'd just got flashes of my Mum and Dad running through my mind, thinking, how they're going to cope, losing another brother, another son.
In the early hours of the 26th of April, a shocking discovery was made 36 miles from Edwinstowe.
We received a phone call from an employee of a hotel that had found a body in the bedroom of the hotel. Officers arrived at the room in question, and it was immediately apparent that there was blood at the scene, and the man himself had got his hands tied. He'd also got a scarf across his eyes, at the back of his head. It's certainly an unusual set of circumstances.
Immediately, police set about organising what they believed to be a crime scene.
Police officers took steps to secure the corridor and the room itself so that no one else was allowed anywhere near it. The senior officer called out for the forensic services and the pathologist to attend the scene. Certainly they spent some considerable time there taking samples for fingerprints, DNA, fibres, that sort of thing. It was apparent from the amount of blood around that it was a suspicious incident, and we were able to identify the man, Mr. Philip Croydon, and that was from his driving licence.
Philip's wife Carol and his family were completely unaware that their worst fears had been realised, but it was the police's job to inform them of the news.
When officers told Carol Croydon that her husband had been found dead in a hotel, she was clearly very distressed.
She was hysterical at the time. She was really, really distraught. She couldn't understand what he'd been doing in a hotel room, and she wanted answers.
Unaware their brother had been found dead, Stephen and Sandra were on their way to Carol's in Edwinstowe to make sure she was okay.
I received a call and was on the way up there to say that Phil had been found in a hotel and he was dead.
It was such a shock that I kind of panicked a little bit, but it's happened and we've got to go and face and find out what the story is.
Stephen and Sandra continued their journey to see their sister-in-law.
When we got to the house, Carol was there. She was upset, but probably not as upset as the rest of us.
When we walked in the house, there were there were probably 5 or 6 police officers there, because Carol had fed him the information that Phil was depressed. So Steve said, I hope he hasn't committed suicide. Obviously thinking about my mum and dad again. Steve, we need to tell my mum and dad. And so the two police liaison officers drove with us up to my mum and dad's house.
First went to the parents' address to Ted and Mark, and the rest of the family were all at their house. I was with a colleague at the time. There was brother and sister, Steve and Sandra. Employed as a family liaison officer, involved with interaction with the victim's family, to interview them about the victim, the lifestyle, the background of that person, and to liaise with them and keep them fully updated with every step of the investigation.
My dad knew straight away that something bad was wrong, and I told him that Phil had died. My dad was probably worse than my mum. He was absolutely distraught. He was in bits. Just kept saying, "God, why?" Just didn't. He couldn't deal with it. I think with losing two sons before that, he just couldn't believe that he'd lost another son. So, just really broke him.
Despite having just received the heartbreaking news about their son, Philip Croydon's parents' thoughts quickly turned to his widow.
Carol stopped and spoke to my dad and my mum for a little while, and then made her excuses, saying she had a headache and she wanted to go to bed, and would I help her to get in bed. My dad kissed Carol as she went upstairs to bed, and told her to try and get some rest.
The family grieved and tended to a distraught Carol.
I went to help her get undressed and put some pyjamas on and get into her bed, while we all sat downstairs, discussing and kind of guessing what might have happened to Phil.
In the hotel, the police investigation was unearthing more details surrounding Philip Croydon's death.
The Home Office pathologist arrived at the scene, examined the body of Mr. Croydon, and it became apparent that he received numerous stab wounds to the back of the neck and also to the chest. The ties that had been tied to his wrists and the scarf that had been placed over his head, it was his opinion that these had been placed or tied on after death. They were so tight that there was no discoloration of the wrists, no reaction when they were untied. And in relation to the scarf that had been placed over his head, he suggested that would have fallen off in an assault. So it was quite clear that this had happened after death. And it was our opinion that whoever had done this had wanted to make it look like a sexually orientated assault.
Now police were certain they had a murder case on their hands, and whilst Carol was grieving with the Croydon family, they checked a new potential lead. CCTV footage of the previous night from the hotel cameras was found and examined. It showed Philip Croydon entering the hotel alone at 5:09. What officers were hoping was that it would identify Philip Croydon's killer. The police were one day into investigating the death of Philip Croydon from the Nottinghamshire village of Edwinstowe. He'd been found in a local hotel room with multiple stab wounds and his hands and neck bound. Philip's wife Carol had reported him missing on the night of the killing. Police had already concluded this wasn't a sex game gone wrong, but murder, and they hoped the hotel's CCTV footage would help with their inquiries.
As two detectives viewed CCTV footage from the hotel.
Armed with the details of all the Croydon family vehicles, 20 minutes after Philip had checked in, police made a surprising discovery.
Mrs. Croydon's car was seen entering the hotel on the Friday evening, and a lady who got out of the car fitted the description of Mrs. Croydon. That was clearly very irregular to what she'd said to us about where she was the night before and the fact that her husband was out playing cards.
Then officers saw Carol leaving in different clothes 40 minutes later.
The two officers spoke to the senior investigating officer and immediately then went to Edwinstowe, saw Miss Croydon, and she was arrested on suspicion of murder.
The family liaison officer, Matt Spradbury, was there to see the reaction to this new turn of events.
It was a massive shock to the family that she'd been arrested on suspicion of his murder.
couldn't believe it. I said, look, you've got to be wrong. This can't be right. You've made a mistake. I just couldn't believe that she'd done it.
All the police activity outside the Croydon house in Edwinstowe started to attract attention in the village.
So the village of Edwinstowe is a very nice, quaint, leafy village, very close to Sherwood Forest. It's a lovely place to live, and for journalists it was a massive interest, and for us we obviously covered it every single day.
Carol Croydon was taken to Wigston police station in Leicester to explain how she happened to be checking into the same hotel as the husband she had reported missing.
The police obviously looked into her story, and they looked at the CCTV from the hotel, and there was Carol Croydon at the hotel. Apparently she had no knowledge that her husband was there, and she was going to see him, and she was also filmed leaving the hotel. Police could then prove that she did know where he had been.
She was obviously aware that officers had got her going into the hotel on CCTV. She told police officers that she'd gone there to meet her husband to engage in a swingers session with another couple who we call Brian and Linda.
Whilst Carol was being interviewed in custody, the family wanted as many updates as possible and were waiting eagerly to find out whether there were going to be any charges against her. I had contact with Philip's brother Stephen in the main, and he was adamant that I made a personal visit to them to keep them updated no matter what time it was.
Carol Croydon said that she left the hotel room, she left Brian and Linda in the hotel room with her husband, and that she'd lost her nerve and gone.
This didn't sit right with me at all, because Phil just isn't like that. Never would have even entered his mind to do anything like that.
Phil was very quiet and very shy, and certainly that was totally out of character. So then that made me think, what has she done?
The police went on the hunt for Brian and Linda, the swingers from room 328.
Whilst Mrs. Croydon was being interviewed, officers were checking CCTV footage of the hotel. There was no evidence whatsoever of anyone else going into the room where Mr. Croydon was found, so it soon became very apparent to officers on the investigation that Mrs. Croydon was telling us a lie.
Whilst the family tried to come to terms with events, and after the police had failed to find Brian and Linda on the hotel CCTV, they expanded their investigation to Carol's house in Edwinstowe.
Mrs. Croydon's in custody. There's a lot of actions that are going on behind the scene. We have a lot of detectives who are working on this case.
3 days after Philip's death, the police made a discovery.
Officers carried out a forensic search of her home address and found in a dustbin a carrier bag which contained blood marks, which subsequently, upon testing, turned out to be the blood of Mr. Croydon.
The police continued their search, uncovering plane tickets to Dublin for Carol and a male passenger flying 2 days after Philip's death. With this new evidence, they questioned Carol again.
She was asked about a number of contacts that were held in her mobile phone. There was a gentleman in the contacts that she described as being a friend and a shoulder to cry on. However, behind the scenes, officers were making inquiries into the various individuals concerned. This particular individual, it soon became apparent from what officers found that he was more than just a casual friend, if you like, and possibly somebody that she may have been having some sort of relationship with.
It wasn't long before Carol changed her story.
When she was further interviewed, she introduced this person to us as somebody that she was having a relationship with. Mrs. Croydon told police officers that her boyfriend had come to the hotel, come into the room, and told her to leave. Later meeting up with him in the evening, he then told her that she wouldn't be seeing her husband again.
Police acted fast, and Carol's lover was arrested.
The following interview, she then actually changed her story and actually said to police officers that her boyfriend burst into the hotel room and stabbed her husband Philip several times, and she actually witnessed him do that. So we've got a change, if you like, of the two interviews, from actually letting him in and asking him to leave to, secondly, from actually watching him do it. She was asked, how did her boyfriend get into the room? How did he burst into the room? She was unable to answer that.
Could it be
that Carol is so enmeshed with her lover? Is she wanting to protect him? Is she covering for him? Would that explain why actually the stories so far really haven't been very believable at all?
While Carol's lover was in custody, the police were checking out his movements at the time of the murder.
We were able to actually eliminate a boyfriend through his mobile phone, which actually put him in a different part of the country, and he couldn't possibly have been anywhere near the incident scene.
The police looked into his story very carefully to discount him from the murder, and they proved that it would have been impossible for the lover to get to the hotel in time and leave. They retraced his route very carefully, and they timed it, and they made it sure that they could prove that he was not involved.
Philip's family continued to be kept informed of events by police.
It was like as if Phil had died all over again, because the first story obviously wasn't true. So then she was telling us this. So then it was like putting us through that torture of losing Phil all over again, but in a different way.
Once we discovered that the boyfriend could not possibly have been involved with the murder, he was released from custody. We then presented the evidence that we'd got so far to the CPS, who proposed that we charge Mrs. Croydon with murder.
After 13 separate interviews, and 5 days since Philip Croydon's body was discovered in room 328, his wife Carol was charged with murder.
There was sort of a sense of relief there that, we knew what had happened.
News of the murder charge against Carol quickly spread through the community.
When the villagers found out, they were shocked, because it's such a quiet, peaceful village. Everybody was talking about it at that time, because it was so unusual.
Police started to build a picture of the days leading up to Philip Croydon's death, but to establish murder, they would have to prove Carol had a motive.
We made inquiries at Carol Croydon's place of work, and CCTV showed that she left at 2 minutes to 5. She'd actually signed out at 20 past 5. We thought that showed some sort of planning on her behalf to buy herself some 20 minutes of time.
With Carol in custody, the police continued with their investigation.
We made inquiries at Carol Croydon's place of work, and it became apparent that there was a knife missing, some sort of cheese knife, but we were never able to fully establish the time it went missing.
On the morning of the 25th of April 2003, police believed Carol left home for work with a number of neckties and a change of clothes in her possession. Had Carol set out that day with murder on her mind? The case was building, but who knew what was around the corner? In Nottinghamshire, police were dealing with a murder investigation that was continually changing direction, but they were determined to find the truth. 5 days after Philip Croydon had been found stabbed in a hotel room near the village of Edwinstowe, his wife Carol had been charged with his murder. She'd already changed her story on 3 occasions, wasting police time and resources, but there was more to come. Whilst Carol was on remand awaiting trial, yet another version of events emerged. She now said Philip had asked her to tie him up.
As a child, she'd been sexually abused by various people. She said that she'd had flashbacks to her childhood, which caused her to inflict the stab wounds to her husband, which subsequently killed Mr. Croydon.
At this stage, it's quite clear that Carol has committed the killing, so really the only other option for her is to try and get a reduced sentence by saying that it was diminished responsibility.
Carol blamed flashbacks to her childhood, and that had sent her into a blind rage, and she couldn't remember doing anything, but just found herself standing over Phil's body, and Phil was dead.
I've worked with a lot of patients who have flashback phenomenon, and they are very strong, vivid memories. What tends to happen, though, is that people go back to how they felt whilst that memory was formed. So what I would expect was for Carol to have felt small, helpless, immobilised with fear.
With Carol now claiming she hadn't committed murder, it was the police's job to prove it was premeditated. So they looked into Carol and Philip's life together in the search for a motive.
Carol's past was always kind of kept a bit of not a secret, but she never wanted to discuss it. And if you asked her questions about her past, which you could tell made her feel uncomfortable, she would move on to another subject.
Philip Croydon and Carol got married on the 17th of June 2000 at St Peter's Church in the Derby suburb of Chellaston.
Our first impressions were good. I mean, Phil was obviously clearly madly in love with her, even though he'd not known her for very long. Carol seemed very friendly, but she was a little bit secretive about her past and her family. We knew she'd been adopted, she told us that much, but that was about all she did tell us.
Philip's father told me during my interview with him that he didn't know very much about Carol's background or much about her, and he potentially wasn't too trusting with her.
Phil kind of changed a little bit. I got the feeling that she was feeding him, this is what you should do, this is what you should say.
Police discovered that Philip went out of his way to try and give Carol everything she desired.
She was very materialistic. Everything with Carol was all about money and how people might perceive her, down to the car that she had, the pedigree cats that she had. Everything was all about how it looked to other people.
This was also noted by Family Liaison Officer Matt Spradbury.
They both had, at the time, brand new Toyota sports vehicles. The home address was beautifully furnished and a very nice big house. It's quite clear that Carol liked to have nice clothes as well from some of the search work we did, and liked to have nice things in her life.
The investigation continued, and officers uncovered that Carol's lavish lifestyle with Philip was in stark contrast to her upbringing.
There's no doubt that Carol had not come from ideal circumstances. That leads me to think that maybe she'd inherited some sort of predisposition towards antisocial behaviour. Or at the very least, maybe her early experiences in those first 2 years of when she was still with her mother and her father were so damaging that it affected her ability to form close, meaningful attachments to people in her life, and particularly men in her life.
Philip's family may have been unaware of Carol's background, but they were now under no illusions that she had killed Philip.
The police had just drip-fed us the information as time had gone on, and each time she'd changed the story. I think it wasn't a shock what she'd done, because we knew a different person to the person that she was portraying.
When the pathology report came back, it didn't seem to point to a vulnerable woman who was protecting herself as she was claiming.
Carol entered room 328, where her husband was waiting. She performed a sex act on her husband, and then she got a 4-inch cheese knife out of her bag and began to stab him.
On examination of Mr. Croydon found that he'd been stabbed 22 occasions, 2 to the chest, 20 to the neck area.
Philip Croydon bled to death. He had superficial cuts to his left hand that implied that he tried to grasp the blade as it was plunged into him, and that he'd possibly been trying to fight back to save his life.
The attack was very frenzied, but then it had to be in order to get Philip dead quickly so that he couldn't overpower her, maybe use the knife against her in self-defence. So she had to be committed to a very, very brutal and sudden attack, and she was. She severed his spinal cord with one blow, so she wasn't taking any chances.
This horrific attack on Philip had been carried out with a cheese knife that fitted the description of one that had gone missing from Carol's workplace a few weeks before.
Here we've got a direct link between Carol and the murder weapon. Now, I can imagine why somebody planning a night of romps with a husband might pack neckties and scarves, but pack a cheese knife? That's something that's a bit more difficult to explain.
With Carol's stories not adding up, ascertaining what was fact and what was fiction in Carol Croydon's life wasn't proving to be simple for police. Carol Croydon was accused of murdering her husband Philip and leaving him tied up in a Nottinghamshire hotel room, trying to make it look like a bondage session gone wrong. Having already changed her story numerous times, Carol was now claiming diminished responsibility due to a life of abuse. Police were still busy trying to prove a motive, and thus murder.
There just seemed to be no motive whatsoever for killing her husband, except that she stood to inherit the £300,000 family home in Edwinstowe and an insurance policy.
Police carried on with their investigations and went through the hotel bookings on the night of the killing.
A neighbouring couple who were in the next room to Mr. Croydon reported hearing noises at the relevant time of the incident and a voice saying, "Don't."
Officers continued trying to prove that Carol's motive was financial. Looking into her and Philip's relationship was key to their case.
He met Carol at work. Carol went there as an accountant, and after a short period of time they developed problems with the company. Carol was fired from her position. Phil was that much in love with her. He felt that he had to give his notice in as well, so they both went at the same time.
Detectives soon discovered a side to Carol that she'd kept hidden from everyone, including her besotted husband.
She'd made a lot of false statements, if you like. She'd got a false driving licence in terms of her date of birth. Her birth certificate had been falsified, again with the date of birth. Her passport, even a national insurance number. She'd made herself appear 4 years younger than what she actually was. She was also, it was found that she'd applied for an accountancy course and falsified her qualifications. That enabled her to get a role later on in life as an accountant. Clearly, there's a lot of things going on in the background here that just didn't add up with Mrs. Croydon.
What police were discovering was that Carol Croydon's whole life was nothing more than a tangled web of lies. What they needed to do was prove that her claim of diminished responsibility was just another one.
Carol said that she'd been abused, sexually abused, physically abused throughout her life and by various different men. It might provide some sort of reason for why she's so willing to really take advantage of any of the men in her life, and why she was angry towards her partner to the extent that actually divorcing him wasn't enough. She wanted to kill him.
After an investigation lasting more than 6 months, the police believed they had enough evidence to convict Carol of murder. But it would all be meaningless if her defence could prove diminished responsibility. On January the 28th, 2004, the case against Carol Croydon went to Nottingham Crown Court.
She was brought into court, sat in the dock, very calmly, as all the charges were read out to the jury. There was one charge because it was murder. I just remember her being very, very calm and cool in the circumstances. She was facing a murder charge.
The prosecution presented their case, witnesses came and gave their evidence. The defence went down the line of provocation. Miss Croydon was suggesting that her childhood she'd suffered sexual abuse by a number of people and that she'd suffered provocation into murdering her husband.
The whole of Philip's family were in court from the first day.
Carol didn't show any emotion. When she stood there, there was just a look of fear, but not any emotion showing at all. It was just like shock that she'd been caught.
The extent of Carol's colossal amount of lying was laid out in every detail for the jury.
There's only one witness to the crime, obviously, which was Carol Croydon, and she didn't give evidence about that, so the jury were reliant on the explanations that she gave to the police at the time, and there were varying explanations as to what happened and what her involvement was that changed, and that was probably one of the most interesting parts of the case, about how she had told lie after lie to the point where she couldn't remember what happened.
To be a good liar, you have to construct a very plausible lie, and then you have to stick to it really quite rigidly. And this is where she comes unstuck, because Carol has to have points for flair and imagination, but when it comes to consistency and believability, she really does fall down. She's too much of a fantasist.
The jury then heard Carol's final version of events.
Mrs. Croydon admitted that she stabbed her husband many, many times, but she'd had a blackout, and then when she came to, she was just standing over his body and couldn't actually recall the actual incident itself. This was viewed by a psychiatrist in court as being very unusual in the circumstances. He said it was possible, but he doubted it. She fitted each account to try and deceive, and hopefully she was hoping to get away with convincing people, but obviously when she's presented with the truth, she has to change her story.
The prosecution introduced the evidence from the crime scene, starting with the pathology report.
The pathologist in court found the neckties around his wrists had not been soaked in blood, which implied that it had been tied around his wrists after he'd been attacked.
What the chambermaid saw would have appeared to a layperson as a sexual misadventure, a sexually motivated offence. But actually, it doesn't take too close an inspection to work out that it's not all as it seems. And when a crime scene has been cleverly constructed to look like something it isn't, there's a reason for that. Somebody wants to distance themselves. So if somebody wants to distance themselves from a murder, the chances are that they're actually very, very close. And you can't be more close to murder than a husband and a wife.
Sitting in court, Carol's web of lies were harrowing for Philip's loved ones.
We all went every day for nearly 3 weeks. Some days it was difficult. You know, you didn't want to get in the car, you didn't want to go and listen to the information that you knew you were going to have to sit through again. And kind of see my mum and dad's faces and how everybody felt, and it was very upsetting and very draining, and obviously something that took the family years and years to get over, and I really don't think my dad ever got over it.
Towards the end of the trial, the prosecution called in a psychologist to talk about Carol's alleged state of mind at the time of the killing.
Carol says that she was very, very depressed. She was depressed as a result of problems in her marriage, and she was depressed as a result of trauma in her history. But the classic symptoms of depression are lack of libido, lack of motivation, lack of concentration and ability to plan ahead, general purpose apathy. Now that's actually the antithesis of what we're seeing with Carol, because this is somebody who was able to plan and execute a murder and also maintain several affairs.
What the jury was told by the expert witness was to be key in the case against Carol Croydon.
It concluded that Mrs. Croydon couldn't have been suffering from any mental disability or depression at the time of the killing.
With that, Carol Croydon's defence of diminished responsibility collapsed. It was the moment Philip's family had been waiting for.
At this point during the trial, they were now beginning to think that she's responsible for this, and they just wanted justice to be done.
After almost a 3-week trial, a jury of 7 women and 5 men retired to consider Carol Croydon's various accounts of the events on the evening of the 25th of April 2003. After just 3 hours, they'd reached a verdict.
On February 12, 2004, Carol Croydon was convicted of the murder of her husband at Nottingham Crown Court. She broke down uncontrollably in the dock when the jury came back with the verdict. She clutched a tissue to her head.
I think when the judge found her guilty, after I screamed, it was panic. I was thankful that she'd been found guilty, but at the same time, you know, still kind of just thinking about Phil and what, you know, we were never going to see him again.
On convicting Mrs. Croydon, the judge said in his summing up that he was quite satisfied that she'd committed a sex act on him, got him at his weakest point, and it was at that point that she murdered him.
The judge sentenced Carol to life imprisonment at a minimum term of 16 years. He told her that she was a cold-hearted, cold-blooded killer who tried to blame others for being responsible for her husband's murder.
This Carol Croydon case wasn't a sudden loss of self-control during an argument. It was a pre-planned and well-thought-out murder.
All along, Carol's allegations of abuse had just been more lies. Philip's family struggled to see the 16-year sentence as justice.
The sentence can never be long enough for anyone to do something like that, to take another life deliberately and never show any remorse, which she hasn't. She's never ever admitted to it, never shown any remorse, never apologised. And to do something like that, my opinion is people who are 100% guilty, there's no doubt whatsoever, they should stay in prison the rest of their life.
When she was found guilty, she sat in the dock and she sobbed, presumably for the fact that she wouldn't be able to live the great life that she'd led in the past, not for the fact of she'd taken our brother away from us, and she killed him in such a horrible way that would be emblazoned on all our minds forever.
After the verdict, Philip's dad, Ted Croydon, read a statement in which he said, "I curse this woman every day I wake. I call on God that she cannot sleep, that she knows no peace of mind, that her food is harsh in her mouth and without taste, that her thirst cannot be quenched, that she sees no sun or the beauty of nature, that she hears no bird's song." He added, "That woman is the devil incarnate, nothing but an evil witch."
I absolutely hate her as much as I did the day that she did it. I hate her just as much, not just for what she did to Phil, but what she's put my family through. It's unforgivable. My father was never the same. It ruined his life, it changed him completely. He was a broken man. He died a broken man. I'll never ever forgive her for that.
Because Carol Croydon refused to take the stand, no one will ever know for certain what happened in room 328 on the 25th of April 2003. But perhaps the most surprising aspect of the whole case is that Carol's lover left his wife, and at time of sentencing still wanted a future with her, despite the fact that she named him as the killer, hoping to evade justice.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. We've got a busy programme, so do stay with us. Today, we'll be hearing from police about how they caught a trio of teens stealing mopeds just to go on a joyride.
These lads were doing it for fun and games. Absolutely no regard whatsoever to any of their victims. We all really wanted to get these lads into custody.
We're in Stoke-on-Trent to hear from a charity supporting young people who've been affected by knife crime.
So far, the charity's helped thousands of young people. Our aim is to show them that they're part of a bigger community that's going to make sure that they feel safe and they feel supported, always.
Also, the Met Police need help with an investigation into a sexual assault against a child.
And we'll be joined by a charity advocating for families who've lived through fatal domestic abuse.
As always, police and our team are ready to take your calls today, so do get in touch. You can use the QR code below. Just hover your phone's camera over the code and follow the link. Or call us on 08000 468 999. Give us a text on 63399. Start with the word crime, leave a space, then write your message. Or email us at cwl@bbc.co.uk.
First this morning, in a case that was woefully underreported at the time, in 2023, 48-year-old Fiona Home was murdered by her partner. Today, police want to find out where her remains are so a family can grieve her properly. Just to warn you, this film contains some upsetting scenes.
I have a picture in my bedroom of my mum. I see it every day and I just think, I need to know where you are.
When I read the name, I got goosebumps on my arms because I knew that he had murdered another woman.
"48-year-old Fiona Home lived alone with family close by.
My mum, she was just one of them people that were just one in a million. She was so generous.
She'd brighten up your day. She would, definitely.
I was born with sickle cell anemia and I've been going in and out of hospital since birth. My mum's always been there. She's always been supportive. She was more like my best friend when I was growing up. And it was more like she just wanted to do the same things what I wanted to do. Like she wanted to party. She wanted to show us her dance moves. She thought she was the best dancer in the world.
I think she was about 35 when she got diagnosed with autism, ADHD. She's basically got a mind of a 15-year-old. She was too trusting. She didn't see danger, she didn't see bad in anyone. She was very vulnerable, and a lot of people take advantage of her.
In January 2023, Fiona had told her family she'd started a relationship with a man in his 60s.
My sister said to me she was going to some man's house she just met. So I was like, well, let me talk to him, because I didn't want to go into someone I didn't know. I spoke to him, he was kind of rude on the phone. He was, I think, a handyman. His name was Cole Cooper.
Around the time Fiona met Carl, she had started seeing less of her family.
It was March 23. I was really ill with my sickle cell and I had a lot of blood transfusions. I was in and out of hospital. I thought it was quite strange because I couldn't get hold of my mum sometimes when I was calling her.
Then a month later, Fiona called the police.
She disclosed that Cooper had threatened her that evening with a crowbar. And she also told officers that he'd previously stabbed her in the arm with a screwdriver at her home address a few weeks before.
Cooper was given a domestic violence prevention order, banning him from contact with Fiona for 28 days. Then a few months later, police were called a second time.
On the 29th of June 2023, Fiona was reported missing by her social worker.
The social worker called me and asked if I've spoken to Fiona. She was trying to get hold of her. She said she went to her place, no one was there. She's been ringing her phone, no answer. So I said, right, I'm going to go and have a look for her.
I went to my mum's house to see if she was there or if anyone in Blackheath knew where she was. Everybody said they haven't seen her for about a month. Then I went in the kitchen. Somebody just said to me, pull out the sheets in the washing machine, and it actually had all mould on it.
Fiona clearly hadn't been home for some time, so Elise and Savannah decided to visit Carl Cooper's house to see if she was there.
When we arrived at Carl Cooper's house, all of his windows were painted white. So my partner scraped it and we looked in and it just looked like a cluttered house.
We just called him Fiona.
Yeah.
We shouted for Fiona, because really we thought that he was keeping her against her will.
The house was empty, so they reluctantly left. But when Fiona didn't call her mum on her birthday, Elise and her brother decided to visit Carl Cooper's house again.
We noticed a man with a van on Coles Drive. We asked the van driver if we could look in the back of his van. I noticed my sister's furry jacket. When the man gave it to me, it smelled of my sister and I was just sick. I was physically sick. I just knew then there's something bad's happened to her.
Unbeknownst to them, it turned out that Carl Cooper was already on police's radar.
In February 2022, we began a murder investigation of a woman who died in her flat in Woolwich.
The body of a 41-year-old woman called Naomi Hunt had been found by her neighbour. She'd been stabbed multiple times.
Looking at Naomi's life, we knew that she'd been in contact with a man, and that man's name was Carl Cooper. We know from previous police reports that Naomi had made against Carl that he was jealous and possessive. She'd reported him previously for stalking her and turning up at her address unannounced and refusing to leave. The case against Carl Cooper was very difficult for us because we didn't have any forensic evidence to suggest that he was involved in Naomi's murder. We had no witnesses. He himself had been interviewed and said yes, he was there, but he left and she was still alive. And it was difficult for us at that time to prove that he was the person responsible, and we didn't have sufficient evidence to take the case to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Cooper was released on bail due to lack of evidence, and then 11 months later, he started his relationship with Fiona, who lived just 4 miles away from Naomi. When DCI Blackburn heard about the disappearance of Fiona Home, and that she'd been in a relationship with the chief suspect in a murder case, she acted immediately. We'd been investigating Naomi's murder at that point for about 14 months, and I got goosebumps on my arms when I read Carl Cooper's name because I knew that he had murdered another woman. I went straight to my boss and I said that we needed to take on the investigation. I knew that both investigations would be stronger together and would provide us with the best evidence to secure a conviction. So I instructed officers to arrest him at that point and bring him to the police station for questioning.
Is it Carl?
Yes.
Carl, you're under arrest, okay? For the murder of Fiona. Carl, you didn't have to say anything, it may harm your offence, you do not.
By this time, Fiona had been missing for more than 2 weeks. Cooper was arrested for murder.
Oh, I would never forget that feeling.
So why them choose me? Why them choose me?
They brought us to the police station and said they've arrested him on suspicion of murder.
In that moment, I didn't want to process it. I didn't believe it, that he done something so serious to my mum.
With Cooper in custody, DCI Blackburn and her team needed to track Fiona's last known movements. We conducted extensive witness inquiries and CCTV inquiries and found footage of Fiona in Verdant Lane on the 20th of June 2023 at about 9:30 at night. This was very close to Carl Cooper's house. Cooper said, I saw Fiona that night, we went to the shop, we went back to my house, but she left by dawn. But they had a huge breakthrough when they viewed some body-worn footage a fellow officer had taken in Cooper's living room 3 months earlier. That showed a very different living room to the living room that we were faced with. There was a corner sofa, the TV was working, there was a glass coffee table, there was a rug on the floor, there was space to sit down on the sofa, and it was very much a livable, usable room. However, when we attended in June 2023, that wasn't the case. The front windows had been painted white, which appeared to be quite odd. You could see that the living room had been completely stripped out of wallpaper, the curtains had been cut, and it was no longer a usable room and had been filled with junk from the rest of the house. There was a corner sofa that used to be in the living room at Carl Cooper's flat. 2/3 of that had been removed and taken to a waste disposal site. And we could see that the sofa, which was a white pleather material, looked like the covering had been ripped from that sofa. Police suspected Cooper had the sofa disposed of to hide crucial evidence. Forensic examinations of the house uncovered more vital clues. We found blood belonging to Fiona on the walls of the property. There was also blood on a router in the corner of the property. Cooper would set fires around the time that Fiona went missing. We believe that was to dispose of evidence. Whilst the findings confirmed everyone's worst fears, they didn't answer the biggest question. What happened that night? Where is her body? Police charged Cooper with Fiona's murder. The blood evidence in the house was significant because until we had the confirmation that the blood on the walls was Fiona, we had very little forensic evidence or any direct evidence to say that Carl Cooper was responsible for either murder. In June 2024, Carl Cooper was found guilty of the murders of Fiona and Naomi. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison for each murder.
We all just started crying.
And then I had to make the call to my mum. Yeah, that was hard. Because you're happy, but you're not. How can you be happy about that?
And then when they gave him a chance to speak, he was just... You could tell they had no remorse whatsoever. He didn't care.
I thought that he was going to tell us where her body was after he got found guilty and sentenced, but he just walked away.
The family just want to lay Fiona to rest, and so the police investigation continues to try and find her body.
She's out there on her own. We don't know where she is. She's just... It's horrible.
Most of us are not sleeping, not eating properly. My nan's always waiting by the phone, waiting for a phone call to say that they found my mum's body.
We can't move on because we can't say goodbye to her properly.
We can't grieve properly either. The thought of never laying my mum to rest There's no words for it, to be honest with you. I just can't explain it. It's just so horrible and so upsetting because my mum doesn't deserve it.
This really has been so incredibly hard for Fiona's family. I'm joined now by DCI Kate Blackburn from the Met Police. Thanks so much for being with us in the studio. We obviously heard in the film there that Carl Cooper has been found guilty of 2 murders. So what do you want to appeal for today?
Yes, so Carl Cooper was convicted last year of the murders of Naomi Hunt and Fiona Home. But today my appeal is about Fiona. So we haven't recovered Fiona's body. And what I want to do today is ask anyone who has any knowledge of where Fiona may be to come forward. But I'd also like to just talk about Fiona, because although Fiona did have vulnerabilities, she was an incredibly resilient woman. She was very much loved by her family. And to have her back would mean the world to them, as you've heard in the video.
So let's talk, Kate, about Fiona's movements and where she was going the last time that she was seen.
Yeah, so Fiona left a property in Verdant Lane and she walked towards Brownhill Road. Carl Cooper lived in Broadfield Road, which was a couple of roads along, and we know that she ended up that night in Broadfield Road at Carl Cooper's home address. But we have no footage after her in Verdant Lane.
So she was never seen again after that point. And when was she officially reported missing?
She was reported missing on the 29th of June by her social worker.
So let's talk in a bit more detail about Carl Cooper and Kate. Anything that might help the viewers that are watching today?
So Carl Cooper's in his 60s. From the photo that we have of him, he looks, a man in his 60s, but he would often wear a cap and quite trendy clothes and trainers, so he would look maybe a lot younger than 60s. He's got some missing teeth in the front of his mouth, and he would also speak with quite a heavy Jamaican accent. He lived in Catford, and we know that he had links to the Brixton area of London, and also would travel to Reading. He liked to travel around buses. He was a plumber, handyman, so he may have done work at people's houses as sort of cash-in-hand work.
And when it comes to the murder of Fiona, you believe that he could have had help with this?
I think it's likely that he could have had help, yes, because Fiona was murdered in Carl Cooper's home address. I know that Carl doesn't drive, so I think it's likely that somebody may have helped him, potentially even inadvertently.
How can the viewers watching this morning help with this case?
So I'm really looking for any information, and that could be about anything. It could be something that people think is fairly insignificant, but that could be the missing piece for our investigation. I'm looking for people that may have employed Carl, as in a handyman or a plumber, in their address, or people that may have met him, associated with him. Or did you lend him your vehicle? Has he asked for a lift anywhere around that time period in June, so between the 20th and the 28th of June 2023. So it's a little time ago, but I'd ask people to just try and remember back to that time. And as I said, it may be that the person who might have helped him did so inadvertently, so they may not really have understood what they were doing. And I just want to reiterate that my aim is to find Fiona. So that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. And finally, there is a reward in connection to this case, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. The Met Police are offering up to £20,000 for information leading to the recovery of Fiona's remains.
Kate, thanks so much for taking the time to come into studio and tell us more about this. As always, our contact details are below or can be found using our QR code, and the number to call is 08000 468 888.
We're now joined by Hazel from Advocacy After Fatal Domestic Abuse. Hazel, we just heard the devastation from Fiona's family there, and this is where your organisation comes in, because you can help people like that. You deal with this all the time.
Yes, unfortunately, we see these cases come through more than we should. And AFTA are a charitable organisation, and we will help any family's friends who have been affected by a loss due to domestic abuse. And that could be a homicide, a suicide, or an unexplained death, and we can support them through that.
It's such important work to do. So how do you actually do that? How can you support people going through such unimaginable pain as Fiona's family are?
Yeah, it's tragic, and these families have been through so much, and they are plunged into a world that they never expected to be in, a world of criminal justice, of domestic homicide reviews, of inquests. They don't know what that means, what it's going to do to their life, how they're going to cope with that. So we have a team of specialist advocates, and they will have an advocate who will take them through everything like that, step by step, make sure they understand what that's going to look like for that family, and make sure they know their rights and their options, so that they can make informed choices about, what happens to their family now. But the most important thing is that the family are integral to those processes, and that the family have a voice, and most importantly, the victim has a voice, because that was somebody's most precious person, loved one, and they need that voice.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it, Hazel? That's something that you can't stress enough, making sure that they have that voice and they are being listened to. And it's actually something the CEO of this charity is incredibly passionate about as well.
Yes, he is, and we have an absolutely wonderful CEO called Frank Milan. And unfortunately, Frank and his family found this in this position a good few years ago. His sister Julia and his nephew Will were killed by her estranged husband, and Frank found himself in that world. They didn't feel there was a lot of support, and certainly didn't feel at times that their voice was heard or their loved ones' voices were heard. So he set up AFTER, and since then AFTER have helped hundreds of families to cope with these processes, to cope what's coming at them, and to have some support alongside them during that.
Really is such important work. And something you touched on earlier, Hazel, actually, it's not just domestic homicides that you can help families with, is it? There's other types of death that you can really help them out.
Yes. Recently, in the last few years, we've seen a very significant increase in the number of suicide cases that are coming through to AFTER. And these are people who have been abused, and because of that abuse, they have taken their own life. Because as we know, it greatly affects your mental health. It takes you to a place where you don't think you've got anywhere to go, you don't know what to do, you don't think you'll ever get out of it. And they end their life. And the important thing there as well is there is a crime behind them taking their life. There is abuse, there is coercive control. So it's really important that those families get the support around that to try and get acknowledgement of what's happened to their loved one.
And finally, Hazel, if anybody is watching this and has been affected by this, how can they reach out?
Okay, so come to AFTER on our website, after.org.uk. We have lots of information on there about the type of support and what we do. We also have a help phone number on there and a help email address on there, so you can use any of them to get in touch with us, and we will chat with you about what we can do to help you.
It's just such important work you do, so that's brilliant. And I'll tell you what we're going to do, Hazel, we're going to make sure we put a link on our website with all that information.
Wonderful, that's fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, the teenagers in our next film went on a stealing spree for their own amusement. Little did they know it was the police that would end up having the last laugh.
These lads were doing it for fun and games, carrying a knife and stabbing people to take their things so they could video themselves for social media. Absolutely no regard whatsoever to any of their victims. We all really wanted to get these lads into custody.
1-6, both vehicles are stopped, one's off and running.
In January 2022, a violent gang of moped thieves went on a 2-day crime spree across Peterborough. Their targets, fast food delivery riders.
So the first attack took place on the 8th of January, around 5:30 in the evening. The victim had just been to a fast food restaurant to pick up his order. Whilst he was attempting to deliver that order, the two suspects stepped out in front of the moped. One of them brandished a knife towards the victim's chest.
Give us the bike, man. Come on, take it. Get over there.
Understandably, fearing for his life, got off his moped, and the two suspects jumped onto it and proceeded to drive away.
The shaken delivery driver called the police. When the stolen moped was found later set alight, police suspected it had been used in a joyride.
It very much was a case of, we're going to take your moped and there's no real reason behind it.
The following evening, at around 6:30, another delivery rider was dropping off a pizza less than a mile from the first robbery.
The three approach the victim on his moped, and at that point one of them produces what is described as a large handled green kitchen knife and brandishes that in his direction and says, "Give me the scooter." At that point, the victim tries to get away, but he's pushed off his moped. They take that and they disappear.
40 minutes later, the gang struck again. Now with 2 stolen mopeds, the suspects rode around the city recklessly.
The suspects were picked up on CCTV, driving on pedestrian areas, going the wrong way round on main roads, generally causing havoc.
The gang then approached a 4th delivery rider.
Without any further warning, the suspect stabs the victim in the left thigh. He gets off his bike and at that point runs, understandably petrified, and the suspects follow him. But because he's got a newer moped, the keys go a further distance away from the bike and it cuts the engine.
The suspects left empty-handed before attempting 2 more robberies that evening.
At this point, obviously, we realised that a fairly prompt police response was needed.
A police helicopter was deployed to search for the gang, and at 8:47, they were spotted.
Task Force 6, we're on the scene. Contact with those 2 mopeds.
We ended up managing to pick up the suspects using the thermal imaging cameras.
They're now off-road. They've taken to the footpath behind Wilton Close.
At that stage, they are just driving around Peterborough, down residential streets, down small wooded footpaths, in any attempt to get away. At some stage, you actually see them going the wrong way down a road on the wrong side of the road, generally driving incredibly dangerously, driving in pedestrianised areas in the centre of town, clearly giving no thought to who or what damage they might cause.
What the gang did next astonished the police.
Task Force 6, it appears one of the Pillion passengers possibly filming on their phone.
These lads were playing up for social media, potentially playing up for their friends, the opinions of their peers.
One Pillion passenger got off, taking a photograph of them. They're back on now.
I think at one point they obviously realised that they'd been pursued and viewed by the helicopter with the thermal imaging.
They entered underneath the railway bridge and they're stationary.
So they attempt to hide.
When the gang realised their tactic wasn't working, they decided to split up.
1-6, both vehicles are stopped. One's off and running.
Police continue to track one suspect.
The helicopter followed him and maintained sight on him and managed to follow him to the back of a residential street where you see him discard the moped and make a run for the back of a garden fence.
The 1D come out hopping. And he's trying to get the back door, trying to force it back. He's forced the back door in.
Officers soon followed before arresting their first suspect, Harvey Carr, at his home address.
There's no current arrest.
Then, something extraordinary happened.
There was a knock at the front door. It appeared to be another one of the suspects who was fairly shocked at seeing a police officer answering the door.
He claimed he'd knocked on the door to ask for directions, but police weren't convinced.
Hey, boss, can I come in quickly? There's a man at the front. Go officers with him.
Yeah, we're with him. He's lost.
It didn't take too long for officers to actually realise, with communications from the helicopter and obviously other officers that had seen the lads on the mopeds driving around Peterborough City Centre, actually that was one of our suspects.
Weston Haylock was arrested, but there was still one member of the gang on the run. A witness had noticed he had a distinctive tattoo on his cheek, and the following day he was recognised on social media. Tyler Easterbrook was tracked down to the same house where his 2 accomplices had been arrested the night before.
We turned up and Easterbrook was found hiding under a piece of insulation within the roof cavity.
Once all 3 were in custody, detectives seized their phones and were amazed to find the gang had filmed and documented their entire crime spree.
We saw countless videos from various social media platforms that the 3 lads had made during the course of that evening, showing them setting fire to the mopeds, revving the mopeds that they'd stolen. You could see the police helicopter in the background of some of them. There was messages saying, shall we go and rob some pets?
18-year-old Weston Haylock was jailed for 2 years, 10 months. Harvey Carr, who was also 18, got 3 years, 2 months. And 19-year-old Tyler Easterbrook was sentenced to 6.5 years.
They didn't care at all who they hurt, any laws they broke, just complete disregard for anything other than their want to evidently go out and have a good time. And quite frankly, what has it achieved for them? Prison.
Now, earlier I spoke to DS Pemby-Rea from the Met Police about a very difficult case of a non-recent sexual assault on a child. As you can imagine, this appeal covers some difficult themes, so please do bear that in mind. I started by asking her to talk us through what happened.
Yeah, so we received a report last year from a very brave young boy who reported that back in the summer of 2016, when he was only 8 years old, he was seriously sexually assaulted. He's now 16. He's had the courage to come forward and report it to police, and he told us that in the summer of 2016 he was playing football on Mayors Green near his home address when he was approached by the suspect, who told him he had a son also interested in football and led him to his son, essentially, or what the victim thought he was doing. He's then taken him to a block of flats, and on the ground floor communal area he's then proceeded to seriously sexually assault him.
You mentioned it was Enfield, but do you know any more specifics about when and where this occurred?
So we don't have a date or time, as the victim was only 8, he can't recall those specifics, but we do know that he was initially approached on Mayor Green, and it was from there that the suspect has led him to a block of flats on Pentreath Avenue, as you can see there, and on the ground floor communal areas where he was seriously sexually assaulted. Now, the victim recalls the suspect suddenly fleeing from the scene, as he believes that he was disturbed by a noise, and the victim was left within the flats. He's then left in tears and made his way back home.
It really is such a sad image, and the victim has given us this statement to convey that impact that this has had on him. He says, "When I got home, I felt as if I couldn't speak. I was in shock. I couldn't even explain what happened. I was overthinking how my parents would react, even though they are very supportive. I was worried that if I told them, they would think I had made a silly decision that had led up to the situation happening." It's so powerful hearing those words. What do you think it was that gave this young man the confidence to finally speak out?
He's been carrying this trauma for the past 8 years, and understandably, he found it difficult to talk about, but he's now found the confidence to confide in his parents and the police. And ultimately, what he would like out of this is for the person responsible to be held accountable for what he's done to him. And ultimately, if anyone else is a victim of a similar crime or even victim to the same suspect, for them to now feel the courage to forward and report it to the police.
It's so important, and we want to help with that. Now, this happened a while ago, this absolutely horrific crime. There's not a huge amount of information to go on, but what do you know about the suspect?
So we have no CCTV or images, but from the victim, he described him as a white older male. He had an English accent, was around 5'9" in height, but distinctively he had a thick grey-white beard and also a purple mark under his right eye, which could either be a birthmark or possibly a bruise. That should really stand out about the suspect. And
also, he mentioned something about the boots as well, which may be a clue.
Yeah, it may be a clue in terms of what work he does or what he's doing in the area, but that's quite distinctive.
This is what he described as big, heavy-duty black boots, and as you say, that distinctive mark under his eye could be a bruise, could be a birthmark, but he certainly remembered that, didn't he? Now, this sounds difficult to solve, but we can and do get results from cases like this. Who do you want to hear from today?
I'm reaching out to the local community of Enfield, particularly around the area of Mayor Green. It was a busy summer, 2016. Rio Olympics were on. Leicester City had just won their first Premier League in history, so that may jog your memory in terms of when it was. If anyone can recall seeing this man, he did have a distinctive bruise or birthmark under his eye. You may know who he is. He may be local to the community. He may have done something similar to you or your child. If you do have any further information, we would encourage you to come forward with anything that you've got.
Thank you. If you know something about this awful case, no matter how small or irrelevant you think it might be, please do get in touch. All the ways to contact us are on the screen below. And if you are affected by any of the issues discussed here, then please visit Action Line, where you can find more information and contacts who can offer support.
Time now to visit a diner with a difference and hear how a charity set up to tackle knife crime is helping young people onto a more positive path.
Volunteering most definitely saved my life. If I hadn't gone into the voluntary sector, I'd probably be in prison or be dead. Grew up in Tower Hamlets. At the age of 13, my parents divorced and I moved to Hackney, and life was very different. I was angry because I didn't want my parents to divorce, of course. I was angry because I moved away from all my friends and everything that I knew, and this anger was inside of me that I didn't know how to control. Next thing I knew, I was a part of the gang, and it just escalated from there. To the point where 16, my mother found weapons in my room, and it got really serious when one, a friend of mine got killed, and two, another friend of mine went down. He got sent down, I had a light bulb moment, because that could be me. That could be me next. It was then when the family stepped in. They brought in a family friend, and he got me to join a voluntary organisation and started mentoring me and motivating me to look at my life in a different way. By having something other than the gang to look forward to, it made me rethink my direction. Chit Chat For You was set up by myself and my partner Larissa. Stoke-on-Trent has one of the highest levels of knife crime across the West Midlands. And for us, we wanted to try and do something about that. So we started to put on activities and projects to work with young people and their families and help them and provide them with mentoring and support that's going to help them take another direction. Like it says, it's in the name, Chit Chat, somewhere where they can talk about everything that they need.
I've got a family member that was involved in county lines. There was an involvement in drugs delivering. It was quite deep. It was scary. There was lots of services involved. But there wasn't really much support for me. And somewhere like this, Chit Chat would have been absolutely amazing for me to come and offload, share my experience, realise I wasn't the only one, and realising that it wasn't my fault. So I'm just so glad it's up and running now.
If you guys stay in the diner with Jay and then you guys can get all the tasters done, at the end of the day we'll come back and we'll have a debrief of how the day's gone. Last year in August we opened the Chit Chat For You Retro Gaming Diner. The purpose of the diner is to create youth work experience for young people. We teach them life skills, we teach them how to run their own business. They learn how to cook with the chefs.
Dip it in the sauce all the way in, make sure all the chicken is coated, and then you just place it back on the tray.
Something that they can be really, really proud of, and we want to teach them skills, we want to give them an alternative.
We as staff, we don't get paid. We're all volunteers, so every penny that we make from the diner gets fed back into the charity.
We became partners of Staffordshire Police and we work with them to complete knife sweeps, and we go into local parks and together we will sweep the parks, we will collect the knives, and then them knives go into the knife amnesty bins. It's a massive thing. What we want to do is build relationships between young people and police. At the minute young people have got a very negative view of police and we really want to change that. We brought the Control the Bleed kits in and there's one in each town. We do train people on how to use the kits and they're used to stop the bleeds until the ambulance comes. That in turn saves a life, and even if we save one, we've done our job.
Next, we're building some new youth mentors, and this is a project where we're getting young people we've worked with in the past and we're training them up now to have them become youth mentors.
Before I got involved in Chit Chat For You, I was involved in a lot of crime and around a lot of no good people. Selling drugs, gang crime, violence. Started at a young age really, and then it led to me getting stabbed, led to me going in jail. So Chit Chat For You helped me load. They kind of mentored me and made me realise that I could help people that's been in my predicament and to get them off the roads. I've been there, I've done it, so I can help them, educate them and mentor them into a positive lifestyle role.
So far, the charities helps thousands of young people. Our aim is to show them that they're part of a bigger community, a supportive community that's going to make sure that they feel safe and they feel supported, always.
Great work there. Now we just have time for today's Wanted Faces. First, have you seen Ali or Ali Alexander Gillen? He's been recalled to prison after breaching the strict conditions of his licence. He's 31, 5'11", described as having a medium build and short brown hair. Police say he has connections to Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire and also areas around Bristol. Or how about Daniel Challoner? Although he calls himself Danny and sometimes uses the surname Chan, he has also been recalled to prison after breaching the strict conditions related to his release. Also 31, he has a crescent-shaped scar on the right side of his chin, a Liverpudlian accent, and links to Worcester and also Cheshire. Next, we have to hear Khalid Nasrat, although he goes by the name Lockman. Police in Manchester want to speak to him about alleged involvement in the conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. He's 27, with links to the Hume, Rusholme, Ardwick and Gorton areas of Manchester. And last is Jack Hunter, though he also uses the name Jack Byrne. He's been recalled to prison where he was serving an 11-year sentence for a series of aggravated burglaries. Now, this is an old photo of him, so he will look a little bit different now, but police say he's known in the St Helens area of Merseyside, as well as to Cheshire and Worcester, but they also say he may have left the country and possibly travelled to Spain. Please do get in touch if you know where any of these might be. Our contact details are on your screen down by the clock. Thank you for watching. Today you can catch us on iPlayer, remember, for up to 30 days after broadcast, and if you have been affected by the subjects raised today, help is available at BBC Action Line.
Tomorrow, a homophobic gang go on the rampage.
Over the course of 10 months, the men conspired, planned, committed robberies across Birmingham, resulting in over £100,000 being stolen. They committed appalling crimes that would have a lifelong impact on the victims.
We will see you for that and more tomorrow morning, same time, 10:45. Bye for now.
See you then.